Welcome into the Seahawks Syndicate live show. I am the host tonight, Bryce Coots, and with me, as always, are my three compadres. I got Mookie Alexander, managing editor of Field Goals, Dan Viens, host of Seahawks Forever, and Brandon Kane, the host of the Hawks Nest. Gentlemen, it's been a busy week or a busy few weeks. How you guys all doing?
Yeah, kind of feel like the Seahawks want us to have a good show this week. Like this is usually when there's crickets around the league, but not just the Seahawks, the entire division. Well, everyone except the Cardinals giving us stuff to talk about this week.
Most active dead season in a long period of time that I can remember.
Right?
Yeah, come on, guys. We can't be that mean to the Cardinals. Like it's like just it's poking the dead fish on the side of the river. It's not moving, guys. We already get that.
Well, hey, they can make some noise if they give in to what Jacoby Brissett wants, and then the quarterback issue is already done and dusted. They can deal with that. I mean, if you've got Myles Garrett out there now in the NFC West, you need to have a lockdown situation at quarterback, and Jacoby Brissett's it. I tell you what, it's a busy week when AJ Brown finally getting dealt is not even remotely close to the top story. The NFL week, I guess we're going to have to start marking June 1st every year as significant for maybe trade reasons, more so than just normal procedural cap stuff moving forward. Because we had the Garrett news, we had the AJ Brown news. Maybe this will be a recurring thing, and the NFL will have firm grip on us year round in terms of news.
It really was.
They're trying to take Christmas, man.
Yeah.
They get every day they're grabbing Christmas. Every last day they're going to grab here
now. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, Mookie, and the league's so good at this, at making sure that they're relevant all the way through the calendar season. And, until they changed that rule a couple of years ago, you could make a move in March and just designate someone as a June 1st, cut or whatever. Getting rid of that really did make things a lot more interesting this week for sure.
Yeah, guys. So let's kind of, we haven't been together for about 2 weeks now, and there's been a lot of news. So let's just kind of go through some of the quick hitters, nice and easy. So let's, Nolan Teasley obviously is now the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, which I think is awesome for him. And again, it proves something that this organization is so good at, which is not just talent on the field, but talent in the front office, pro personnel departments and everything. Another one of John's guys is getting an opportunity to run his own franchise.
I think it's so cool. It's great for him. His story, very similar to John Schneider's, talked his way into an unpaid internship at the beginning and then worked his way up that way. And here's where it gets really cool is we get draft picks for it. And it just so happens that the first of those 2 third-round comp picks we get comes in a draft that's being talked about in terms of generational strength. And that pick is going to end up bringing something really cool back to the team, whether they use it as a pick or use it to trade. But I also, the one concern, I know that some fans were worried about losing him, that somehow it was going to negatively impact their scouting process and their pro personnel department. John has layered that thing so deep and stacked it with guys that have been with him for a long time. I'm not concerned about it today, but if Nolan Teasley goes to Minnesota and does well, then I think the floodgates open. Trent Kirchner has been interviewed for jobs before. It's kind of surprised me he hasn't gotten one. He's got Matt Berry. He's got Aaron Heinlein. He's got all these guys that have been with him for a long time. If Teasley goes, if Minnesota goes and has a couple of good years, John could be looking at a rebuild of that entire staff.
So, Brandon, I'm going to kind of go to Hugh with a question here on this. So, assistant general manager wasn't really a role that John had on his kind of front office staff, right? Nolan Teasley is the first assistant general manager he's ever had. Do you think they refill that role, or do you think they just disperse those responsibilities kind of out over Kirchner, Matt Berry, and some of these other guys?
I think it kind of really depends on what really the internal working nature of the relationship was between those guys. Is this a guy that he goes to as a confidant that can be a voice in the room that might go counter to what he's hearing? Is this a guy that he just kind of bounces stuff off, but is interconnected to him in the process? If it's hard to just replace that, if you have a guy who's earned your loyalty and has earned your trust, and that you trust in what he says and the value of his word, so that you can replace that readily, is probably hard to see. With that said, I think Dan's point about the fact that they have fostered, young up and coming talent, it sounds like. Remember last year with him on the 710 interviews, bringing up the presentations of these young guys and how that he was really putting them in the focus and allowing, it seems like, a pathway for them to rise up. And I think that's going to help. I think Dan's points on this are good ones, and that it can become a real problem down the road. But John's already getting up ahead of it a little bit, it would seem like.
Mookie, and for you, what do you make of this whole situation and how John goes forward and how this could potentially change the way Seattle even does business at the trade deadline?
I'll tell you this much. If by any chance the Seahawks have a couple of down years over the next few seasons, then fans are going to be back on Schneider's case, and we're going to be going, Nolan Teasley was the real brains of the operation, just like we did with Scott McLuhan after he left for Washington. No, I'm only half joking, but as far as Nolan Teasley, it wasn't like he was an anonymous figure a couple of years ago. There is a survey that was done in The Athletic a couple of years ago, and they surveyed NFL agents for their opinion on best talent evaluators. Now, Schneider had the most votes. I think he had 4. Nolan Teasley had 2. And at the time, 2 years ago, he was in his first year as an assistant GM. And one of the quotes regarding Teasley was, he sees the board differently than others. He can blend analytics and the tape for a full picture. So he's been somebody on the radar for a good while. So I'm trying to think. The last couple of notable executives to leave for higher ranking positions from Schneider's tree, if you will, were Ed Dodds went to the Colts, and then Scott Fitterer went to Carolina. And Carolina obviously didn't go well for Fitterer, but how much of that is also David Tepper as an incessant meddler. Now, even still, Dan Morgan, former Panthers linebacker, he's their GM, but he was also working under Schneider for several seasons too. So what it means moving forward, I am curious to see what happens as far as any pipelines, because much to my amusement, the first 2 signings that Teasley made today were recently waived Seahawks, Michael Briscoe and Trayvon Rudolph. And one of those guys was a UDFA who was signed like right away, right after the draft. And he had a failed designation with like failure to disclose his physical condition or something, or properly disclose his condition. But like beyond, bit part players or fringe roster guys, I wonder if Teasley had more of a say than we think. I think that, Schneider's still the king, and we'll see things operate as smoothly as they have been over the last few seasons. But in terms of the scouting, in terms of some of the draft decisions, the trade decisions, maybe, just maybe, we might see some wrinkles thrown in. It's all a big mystery to us, but I congratulate Teasley for getting the Vikings job. Now, good luck, though.
What's going to be interesting, too, about a little less than a year from now, when we're in that draft, that epic 2027 draft class, we have seen John over his entire tenure here in Seattle be really effective at making deals with other GMs around the league that he has close personal relationships with. And now he has another guy in place, albeit, it's an NFC contender, but he's made deals with other guys. Green Bay is one example. Minnesota has 10 picks in the draft next year. They have an extra 3rd. They have an extra 5th. They have an extra 6th. The Seahawks have 12 picks, an extra 3rd, and 3 extra 5ths. There's some opportunity there for the 2 of them to get together and move around a little bit on the draft board. That'll be fun to watch.
It's an underrated point, Dan, and especially because remember one of the things that John talked about in this last draft, specifically to moving back from 32 into the second round. I couldn't get people, I couldn't get anybody to do it. Nobody wanted to, it was like everybody's like, yeah, you're the champ. Shut up. Stay in the corner. We're not doing nothing with you.
Right.
At least you got now maybe a voice of somebody that can be, hey, willing to do this. And just be willing to get a deal done. I'll be realistic. You be realistic. Don't just shut me down. Just close the door on me.
You could look at it either one of 2 ways. So Minnesota has the 13th pick in the second round based on projections, right? Based on Vegas odds and all that. Right now, they're projected to have a middle of the second round pick. Okay, Seattle wants to move back. There's a candidate. Also, if they're in the middle of the first round, all those extra picks Seattle has, if there's an edge guy there's a player that they really want. Minnesota wants to add picks. I'm just saying. I mean, it's obviously a long ways out, but it'll be a wrinkle that we'll look at a year from now for sure.
Hey, I'm just saying, Nolan Teasley goes to Minnesota. He's got to fit. Maybe he's the guy that stops the Minnesota Vikings from getting rid of good quarterbacks after they have a good year. Like, let's be honest here. Minnesota's got a bit of a history of that, right?
Does he have one right now?
No, and
I'll
that's
tell you
the
what,
thing. Maybe-
McCarthy's out of there before August at this point, in my opinion. That guy's like trying to light the room on fire to get himself out there, it seems.
Well, frick, his press conference that he had where Kyler was actually semi-decent in his press conference, and then you listen to JJ, and it's like, I want nothing to do with being in that quarterback room at all.
Did you see what he did?
Bryce, go ahead, Dan.
So if you saw the quote from Kevin, he was talking about just how well those two are interacting in the room and everything. Kevin O'Connell was putting on a good face and saying, he reacted to everything. And then he kind of slipped up at one point. He said, look, as a captain, JJ knows how to conduct himself. So then JJ McCarthy immediately goes to his Twitter account and changes his profile to say former captain of the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, geez.
And did you guys see the clip of him like last year at training camp where the lineman was like, all right, you got to say something now. I'm like, my voice is going out from trying to hype these guys up. You got to come in here now. Like, you got to step in here. And Jay's like, yeah, all right, whatever. And it's just, the signs are not good here on this one, man. And
I'll say this, when he came out of college, my biggest thing with JJ McCarthy is I feel like he never had to be the leader because he had Jim freaking Harbaugh, who in his own right is his own leader of his own team. Like, he rallies everybody, and he had Blake Corum and, Aiden Hutchinson and a bunch of those type of players around him when he was at Michigan. He didn't have to do anything. He literally just, hey, kid, throw the ball 12 times. They basically, without doing it, ran a wing T offense in a pro-style form with how do we protect our quarterback from exposing him to having to throw the ball enough to actually win us some games. Let's just hand the ball off and hope our defense can play lights out. I just look at JJ now in the NFL, and I just feel he's gone. He's going to be another Zach Wilson type that's just going to phase out and be a backup at best or a third stringer at best that just bounces around the NFL. But speaking of somebody that's been a backup, Russell Wilson retired officially from the NFL. And so I'll go around and I'll go counterclockwise this time. So Mookie, I'll start with you. When you finally saw the official announcement that Russell was hanging up the cleats, put out his video, how did you feel? Like, did you feel different than maybe you thought you would when that day finally arrived?
For him, I honestly felt relief because I was hoping that he wouldn't damage his own reputation even worse and then create future memes. Not that future, but like soon to be memes as far as just how far he declined, because famously he talked about wanting to play into his 40s. And I think it was pretty evident about 2021, even before the finger injury, he wasn't going to see his 40s as an NFL quarterback. But maybe the final straw was visiting the New York Jets. Like that's the low moments. Like, if I got to back up
considering being Gino's backup, yeah, that was a moment.
At that point, you got to go. Maybe television is more my thing. But look, it's good for him that he's able to retire. Honestly, I wish he had kind of retired after the Steelers thing. The Giants, it will end up being like, Johnny Unitas on the Rams, or sorry, Joe Namath on the Rams, or Johnny Unitas on the Chargers, that sort of thing, where it's just so forgettable. You want to strike that from the record books. This tale of Wilson is a tale of an underdog story, and he became this amazing franchise quarterback for the Seahawks, one of the best figures in Seattle sports history. But you also got to tell the other side of it, which is the ending. The end of his Seahawks tenure, what happened in the Let Russ Cook season. Ironically, if he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, the Let Russ Cook season onward might have damaged his case. The Broncos tenure, complete disaster. He had a little bit of a bounce back in Pittsburgh, but it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. I choose to remember Russ more for the best moments, meaning from 2012 to 2019, where, they take a flyer on him in the third round. They had Matt Flynn, and there was buzz even from Carroll back then in OTAs and minicamp that, hey, Russ has got a legit shot at winning this starting job. And then I'm sure all four of us were blown away by how well and how poised he looked in preseason. Those first few regular season games were kind of tough, but he still had those moments. Fail Mary, Tate caught it, whatever. It's still a game-winning touchdown pass in your third NFL start. The winning touchdown.
Catch.
Yes, the Sidney Rice touchdown against New England, which was one of my great favorite plays in the history of my time as a Seahawks fan, is the fact that they were down 2 touchdowns with 5 minutes, and he was able to get 2 touchdown drives in next to no time and knock off the New England juggernaut, winning a Super Bowl, being within a yard of winning a second Super Bowl, but we kind of know that story there. His evolution from the dual threat quarterback to a much better pocket passer than he used to be. We know his limitations, but the fact that he was able to be so successful with those known limitations, whether physical with his height or certain things regarding seeing the middle of the field and using it consistently, he's had a hell of a career. 10 times in the Pro Bowl, an All-Pro selection. He has unfortunately been the victim of the fact that in his era, you had Peyton having that MVP season of 2013. You had Brady forever being great. He had other greats above him who were just having these all-time great seasons. Aaron Rodgers, of course, being one of them as well. So hats off to Russ. I think that things will have smoothed over with the fan base, and that at some point he'll be in the Ring of Honor, bare minimum. Hall of Fame is a very different story, because while he has the numbers of a Hall of Fame quarterback, there's one thing missing. Never been an MVP, never had an MVP vote. If MVP ranked choice voting existed during his best years, he absolutely would have gotten top 5 voting. And he was never Super Bowl MVP, even though he played really well in the Super Bowl win over Denver.
Yeah, he did.
Most quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame have at least one of those two, or even like Offensive Player of the Year. So he's not going to get in right away if he does get in. And it would be a shame, though, for that era of Seahawks football to have so few Hall of Famers, because like Marshawn is a question mark. Earl, I'd like to think gets in. Russ, question mark. Sherm, again, I'd like to think gets in. Cam, probably not. Bobby is like the only guaranteed surefire thing, but it's Russ's time. I wish him the best, and hopefully he's a good analyst, because God knows it's a struggle for me to watch those pregame shows.
Brandon, what about you? How did you feel when you finally saw the news that it was official?
Well, there was a long time of to end the place of kind of making your peace with Russ all the way around as a player, both to that end when he left and things got a little bit tough and a bit bitter, and then to the watching what he's gone through, and then your heart goes out to him on the exit here and where he's gone. I think there's a lot of things that when we come down to what we do in analyzing teams, analyzing players, and how to look at players, I think that there's a lot of stuff to think about with him. Mookie touched on a little bit of this, and that's working within limitations that you can't control. Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, a variety of other smaller quarterbacks who Russell set the stage for to come here have shown us there are places on the field I cannot see. If you're asking me to run a time rhythmic-based offensive approach and making throws to the middle of the football field, especially short, I'm going to have a hard time with those. And yet he was able to overcome that. He'd line up an extra yard back in shotgun and yet make magic happen. And that I think in NFL history, there's no quarterback who's been better at scrambling behind the line of scrimmage and being evasive and avoiding sack artists than Russell Wilson. There's been a lot of good ones. There's guys that are maybe better that you can say about getting yards when it gets past the line of scrimmage, but nobody better behind the line of scrimmage. That includes Fran Tarkenton, who of course was his big comp as well. The moon balls. Someday you're going to have to break down to me, Bryce. I know I've lamented this many times as to why these guys anymore don't throw it out in front. But with that being said, why does he throw the moon ball? Because it comes in right as a drop into the bucket. It's easier to catch for a wide receiver theoretically. And he was as good as anybody out there in throwing it. On top of a winner, a guy highly productive. I think he does get in the Super Bowl. I think Mookie's points are good ones. But then again, Sean Alexander's got 11,000 yards and an MVP, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. So, the MVP is worth something, but I think also when it comes to people looking at us out here, understanding that we're not going to get MVP votes out here, our players, just in general terms. They're going to have to do extra to get it, like set NFL records like Alexander had to do to get the MVP. I think they're going to look at his accolades. I think they're going to look at his performance. Look at the fact that he was a great guy in the media. One of the things that might hold back Marshawn Lynch, or I know teammate stuff might get him dinged up, but maybe not to the degree of Earl Thomas, who had players in Baltimore voting not to have him come back to the team at the end there. I think he's going to get in. I think he will get in there. And I think if you look at really the yardage, these guys only behind like Vic, Cam Newton, and Lamar as far as rushing yards go, and then the passing touchdowns, and that and the rushing touchdown, you put those together, and I thought it'll be just enough to kind of push him past the mark, in my opinion.
All right, Dan, for you, is there another Hall of Fame quarterback that you see that's kind of in the same light, career-wise as Russell, that might lend to him being, able to get into the Hall of Fame? And how did you take the news that he officially had called it a career?
I was happy for him, and I was relieved too, as Mookie said, because I thought if he would have continued to go, it would have just tainted the end of his career even more, especially if he had decided to go take that backup role with the Jets, because not only would he be behind Geno Smith, and maybe this is what he saw once he got inside the building and talked to those guys, but they're pretty high on Cade Klubnik too, and there's a good chance that he ends up starting some games for them this year. That's just not the way you want to see him go out. I prefer to remember, obviously, his time here in Seattle, but also that one shining, glorious moment he had last year when the Giants played the Cowboys and he looked like his old self and he hit the big bomb to Malik. No, it wasn't Neighbors because he was hurt, but they ended up taking it to overtime, ended up losing the game, if I recall correctly. But man, it seemed like he had kind of gotten into a time machine, taken himself back. I think about, as far as the Hall of Fame stuff goes, it's hard when you just look at the numbers, because yeah, he's top 20 in like passing touchdowns and passing yards, but you look at some of the other names that are in the Hall of Fame too that have less yards than that, or some of the guys he might come up against, and the game has changed so much, that some quarterbacks that should never be considered for the Hall of Fame are going to put up some pretty gaudy numbers. I think when you look at the passer rating and the efficiency numbers and things like that, I mean, I've got it here. He's ahead of guys like, let's see, where's the passer rating? Young, Manning, Warner, Montana, Favre, Stott. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty impressive list of guys that he's ahead of. The same can be said for the touchdowns and the passing yards too. I think about how influential he was and how kind of revolutionary it was. Does Bryce Young ever get drafted number 1 overall? Does Kyler Murray get drafted number 1 overall at 5'10" if Russ doesn't have the success he does? And then I think about how revolutionary that offense was. And he wasn't the first guy to have his team create, the read option stuff around him, but he was certainly one of the most successful. It really transformed that offense. And there's elements of that offense that are still being used in the NFL today. So I think about all that. I think as time goes on, people are going to forget about the cringy personality as much. And I said this to Bryce before we went live. I'll say it just to wrap up my thoughts. He's going to be in your TV, in your living rooms now every single Sunday throughout the NFL, and probably more often than that. He's got a chance to change his reputation and his perception in some people's eyes with his personality. I know that I feel much differently about Alex Rodriguez today than I ever did before when he was during his playing career, because he's done such a tremendous job as an analyst over a long period of time now, that my respect for him is different than it was when I was just thinking about him as a player and his personality and the steroid stuff. So I do think, with you, Brandon, I think he gets in at some point. He's definitely not a first ballot guy, might even push the 5-year window. I don't think he'll be a veterans committee guy, but keep in mind that they don't just plug numbers in and spit it out and come back with an answer. Someone makes their case for them every year once they're eligible. Someone, that watched their career intently, spend a bunch of time analyzing them. They'll stand up there in front of the committee and say, here's why. And when you start kind of expanding that focus and getting into some of the other things that we've all touched on here, I think eventually he gets in.
One quick thing too, to Dan, remember when we were in the late 80s and 90s where John Elway, as he got to the later portion of his career, was looked at as the comeback king, as among the things that he had going for him, like, he's got to carry the team on his shoulders, and he's the comeback team. Well, Russell right now is top 9. He's the 9th all-time in fourth quarter comebacks. He sits just one ahead of John Elway, interestingly enough. Something that should maybe help to the cause just a little bit too.
Oh, that's a great point. And I just got literally goosebumps as you were saying that, because it took me back to the NFC Championship game in 2014, 15, I guess it was by then, against the Packers. Like one of the most epic, historically significant comebacks of all time. And a game we had no business winning, but it was all Russ.
So guys, it's really interesting for me because I think a good comp for Russell Wilson is Kurt Warner. And he's in the Hall of Fame, but to Mookie's point, he does have an MVP. He has won a Super Bowl. He's lost a Super Bowl. The one thing for me where I think it'll take Russ longer to get in is his post-Seattle career. Where you look at Kurt Warner and you go, okay, Kurt Warner had the Rams. Then he had like that mid-career fall apart with the Giants where it was like, to the back half of his Rams career, the Giants, he wasn't very good. And then he ends up in Arizona and he kind of has this resurgence, right? Leads them to a Super Bowl and starts playing really good down the stretch there and unseeds Matt Leinart, who was supposed to be their franchise guy. When I look at Russ, it's almost like the reverse happened. Russ was doing so well in Seattle. All of a sudden, Russ is gone. He goes to Denver. He goes to Pittsburgh. He goes to the Giants. And it's just like it got worse and worse. And yes, we saw moments in there of old Russ, but it never got better. He never had one more significant playoff win. Yes, he got Pittsburgh to the playoffs, but that was about it. And that was such a season that had turmoil around it. It wasn't, an easy kind of season for him where it's like, hey, you're the guy, and here we go. Like it was Justin Fields and so on. I do think he gets in, but I think he's going to be like on ballot 6. He gets into the Hall of Fame. That's where you really start to see that happen. I just don't see it early on for him getting in when there's still other guys that aren't obviously in the Hall of Fame yet that will definitely go above him.
Let me ask you. You were asking for a comp, though, Bryce. So what would make him off of Fran Tarkenton? Tarkenton had an 18-year career. Both had very similar styles of game. Fran Tarkenton had the purple people eaters of the early 70s to help buoy whatever he was in his success. He had some dips and ebbs and flows with the Giants midway through his career and had a little bit of a dip before he came back to Minnesota, and then he was all right there. But statistically, it's hard to compare him. I get it with different eras, but Russ has obviously got him beat all the way down the line in any kind of statistical category. The one thing Fran will have is the MVP, but then Russ has actually got a Super Bowl victory. So you guys might be right on this one. I maybe not the first ballot, but I think he gets in pretty doggone quick on this.
It'll be interesting to see where the voters, where they put the most weight. Because, as you guys are talking about it, I threw in a couple of player comparisons here in StatHead, and you talked about Kurt Warner. The only thing Kurt has over Russ is MVPs. That's it. And then I thought, who's someone that his game stylistically was similar to? And I compared him to Steve Young. And the only thing Steve Young has over him, and it's not nothing, obviously, it's MVPs and 2 Super Bowl championships more than Russ has. But the statistical edge is massively in favor of Russ. So I do think he gets in at a certain point.
And Dan, how much did Young really, I love Young. Young was a great player. Young came in to a machine.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't screw it up, Steve. Just keep the car in drive and just kind of coast on down that highway. Unlike Brandon Ayuk, who doesn't seem to know how to coast. He just wants to accelerate.
You're definitely good with the highway. He just thinks that
Captain Leadfoot.
Every day is
but no, I do believe Russ gets in. I just think it'll all depend on, to Dan's point, who's pushing the narrative for Russ, as well as who is Russ going up against in those situations as other players at that time. And that's the other thing. Like if it was just like, hey, quarterbacks, like here's your list. You have to put in 2 quarterbacks every year. Russ probably, I would say, gets in, because once you knock off Brady and Peyton, then bang, away you go. It's kind of a lot easier of a discussion to have, I think, at a point. But you got to compete with, different players from, the eras and stuff. Like that's where I think it'll be interesting to see when Russ does get in. I think he gets in. I just don't think it'll be first or second, maybe third. We start talking about Russ having the opportunity of legitimately getting in.
Well, the tough thing, and this is through no fault of Russ or anybody, remember that the committee has tightened the standards for Hall of Fame inclusion. These last 2 classes are comically small. They only had 4 inductees a couple of years ago. Sterling Sharp was a senior finalist, I believe, when he got inducted. And then you had Gates, Eric Allen, and Jared Allen. And then this year's Breeze, Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Roger Craig got in as a senior finalist, and that's way overdue in my opinion. So I think they only had 5 this year. We were 2 years ago expecting Mike Holmgren to be in the Hall of Fame. That looked like a shoe-in lock situation, and he ends up not getting in because they've changed things so much that this is the total opposite of the Basketball Hall of Fame, where because it's not the NBA only, they'll let damn near anybody in. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame has just somehow become more exclusive in the past few years, where I feel like there should arguably be more people in there. And Russ could end up being one of the unintended victims of these changing criteria. And I think it sucks for him because a guy like Kurt Warner, his Hall of Fame candidacy, a lot of it is just the story. Because if you look at his entire career, there's, as Bryce said, there ain't a whole lot there after like 2002 with the Rams and then the Giants and then, the first year with the Cardinals. But the fact that he went from grocery bagging in arena football to winning a Super Bowl as the emergency started when Trent Green blows out his ACL, becomes one of the best quarterbacks in the league, revives his career, and takes freaking Arizona to the cusp of a Super Bowl win. That story is why he made the Hall of Fame more so than his numbers. Even Terrell Davis, he's somebody who breaks the trend of having the longevity to go with the numbers. Does he have the longevity? Absolutely not. Does he have the story of being one of the best playoff running backs we've ever seen? Yes, and that's how he gets in, while Sean Alexander unfortunately misses out. So again, it all comes down to politics and just petty things. It's so stupid. I mean, shit, Belichick just didn't get in in his first year eligibility.
You know, it's a fascinating point that you make about who he's up against. And I just did a quick search. And so, you know, I'm going to do a deeper dive on this because I'm going to do a whole show on this tomorrow. But it might not be as much about who will be eligible for the first time when he retires, because no other big name quarterbacks retired this year. So maybe he does have a chance to get a significant number of votes in his first year of eligibility because, first of all, he could send a thank you card to Aaron Rodgers for deciding to play one more season, right? But think about some of the quarterbacks who haven't got in yet, who, if they get in between now and the time Russ is eligible, it might kind of clear the path a little bit. Eli, Phillip Rivers, whose clock resets now because he played last year. So that's one guy that he'll now be first ballot eligible the same year as Russ. And then Roethlisberger and Matt Ryan. Those are guys that I would think would get in before Russ comes up. And so if there aren't any other significant names that pop up over the next couple of years, it could clear the way for him a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes, guys. That's the one thing I will say. After, for me at least personally, seeing that video, it really also feel like for me the closing of the LOB conversation period. It was a great video. It was so good, but it really feels like to me like he was the last because Sherman's gone, and I get Bobby's still out there. I 100% appreciate that. But Russ felt like kind of the last true piece for me in a way, for me to go like, okay, we can stop really talking about that because that isn't sitting in my head. When I see Russ, I'm like, man, I remember those days where he used to do this, and you know, with how the fact we have a great defense, and it just kind of brought all those emotions back. Now that that's kind of closed off, at least for me, it's kind of nice to just be able to be like, yeah, that was an amazing era of Seahawks football.
Yep. I mean, no doubt the defense had a major role. It was the preeminent reason that Seattle was a Super Bowl champion and perennial contender. But some of those game-winning drives, some of those Houdini-like plays, huge reason for Seattle even getting to a Super Bowl and let alone winning it. So Russ had his part. And yes, the dual threat aspect of his game, I can't stress enough how revolutionary that was, that we had him, we had Kaepernick and RG3 all kind of doing the same thing at the same time. But neither one of those other guys, neither Cap nor RG3 was able to sustain that. And they were not 1/20th the pure passer that Wilson was. And when you have Wilson and Lynch in tandem, you have to respect both of those guys. You have to respect Lynch as a running threat, and then you have to respect the read option keep. And they weren't doing that those first several weeks of Russ's rookie season. They were just kind of running the same under center offense or shotgun 5 wide receivers as empty set stuff that Bevel loves so much. And then that Bears game happened, and he practically sent Brian Urlacher into retirement because they ran the same damn play over and over again, and Urlacher's hamstring was failing him bad. And once that happened, you get the 50 burger against the Cardinals, the 50 burger against the Bills, 42 points against the 49ers, all that. That's when the offense started to come alive. And I think the best version of Russ we ever saw was that stretch in 2015, the second half of the year. The Pittsburgh, and what do you throw, like 24 touchdowns and no picks or something? It was a video game-like numbers. It was Russ playing on time, attacking the middle of the field, even after Jimmy Graham's knee injury happened. He looked like a quarterback with the utmost confidence in his own abilities and trusting his reads and staying on schedule. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I think in the moment, a lot of national media undervalued Russ. And then as the years progressed, there was kind of like an overcorrection and a blind eye toward some of Russell's shortcomings, some of his struggles, such that it wasn't just Pete, quote unquote, holding him back, or this offensive coordinator, or this latest bad offensive line. Some of it was Russ kind of setting his own house on fire. But then it got, too vitriolic when he was in Denver and then Pittsburgh, and now it becomes like this retroactive, he was never that good. He was carried by the defense. He's carried by the run again. No, Russ was a major component for Seattle's success. He had his shortcomings. Nobody's perfect. He definitely had some, personal things that's kind of affected his reputation negatively. But as time passes, I think his game will be appreciated a lot more for what it was and how impactful it was. And I'll tell you what, I said it on Twitter. I know Cam Newton has been brought up as a Hall of Fame quarterback. Over my dead body will I ever see Cam Newton in the Hall of Fame. And he was a fun-ass player. He's got no Hall of Fame case compared to Russell Wilson.
And Mookie, to one of your points earlier when you were saying that Russ had to deal with so many great quarterback seasons during his prime, a prime example of that is 2015. His back half of that season, we were all saying Russell Wilson should be the MVP. And who else was in that? That was Cam Newton's MVP season where he was doing everything in his power to get Carolina that Super Bowl. But guys, let's kind of pivot. And we're going to pivot over here to Myles Garrett and the Rams. What, in your opinion, with Myles Garrett, obviously, when the trade happened, I'm sure all of us were kind of like, oh, crap, here we go. I know my initial response when I saw that just the little ticker of Myles Garrett to the Rams, I went, please don't say that Jared Verse is on the other edge, because that's where I actually was like, okay, this is now going to be a little bit more of a potential challenge. I don't get me wrong. I think Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the NFL. I truly do. I also don't think one player makes a defense great. And we've seen that in Cleveland with him. Like, he is a fantastic player. But we also saw him come into Seattle against Charles Cross in 2023. And the Seahawks offensive line didn't have a huge issue dealing with Myles Garrett. We'll start with you, Brandon, on this. How worried would you say of the impact of Myles Garrett in this arms race with the Rams for divisional crown do you think he has?
Well, I think it's definitely immediately concerning. It does, in my opinion, on paper, push them past the Seahawks, though I don't put that as we don't still have as much, from my standpoint. I think we still end up over the top of them at the end of the year. It's on paper. I think the age portion of this cannot be understated, and that this is a roster just slowly, bit by bit, getting older and older. And you touched upon it with Verse, though some Ram fans are trying to sell me on Byron Young somehow being better than Verse. I think that's pretty laughable. He's a good player too. Don't get me wrong. Very good player. Verse is the better player. That's why the Browns insisted upon him. And he is, I think, the best player on the Rams defense. Was last year. So when you talk about, hey, do you want to give up the best player on your defense to give Myles? No, the whole point of making the go for it move is I just want to throw draft capital at it. That's the point of the go for it. That's not go for it. That's something else. Dan, we need another term for that. That part of it has me a little bit going, well, this has got a little bit of something extra to it on this. And some of the issues that are still with this Ram team remain: the depth, special teams, McVay's penchant for wanting to pass the ball too much, which puts that same said depth in peril. I think that this is one that, yeah, it makes you better. Good for you on it. Great move. But at the same point in time, I don't find myself quaking in my boots.
Dan, how about you?
Initially, in the moment when I got the notification, and you know the way those notifications come up from Schefter on ESPN, right? You never really know what the story is at first, and so you see Cleveland Browns trading Myles Garrett, and then you have to open the notification to see where the hell he's going. And so for that split second, I thought, is it Seattle? Because, you know, they checked in, they did their due diligence, they debated the merits of being aggressive and going for him and giving the Browns what they wanted and making that move. Ultimately, they decided, you know, the cost was too high and they didn't want to stray from their plan. I was much more relieved that it was Verse and not Byron Young, as everybody expected. Even, you know, Jake and a lot of the Rams content creators thought that it was going to be Byron Young. And Byron Young's a fine player. He really is. But it's just, like you said, Brian, it's a lot less scary, that combination, than it would have been with Verse on one side, Myles Garrett on the other, with Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk in the middle and all of that. I'll say this. It's, you know, hats off for the aggressiveness. They have a different way of going about doing things there. Over the last 10 years, only drafting in the first round 8 or 2 of those 10 years. And now one of those players has been traded and the other one's going to be their backup quarterback. So basically they punted on 10 years worth of first round picks as far as getting value back for their own roster. But it's resulted over the last 10 years in the same exact result as the Seahawks. They have one Super Bowl championship. The Seahawks have one to themselves. So it'll be really fascinating to see as we get 3-4 years down the road, which of these paths pays off the strongest, right? The one thing that gives me pause if I'm a Rams fan, is Myles Garrett has an interesting history and an interesting reputation as a teammate.
Mhm.
And now that he's not in Cleveland anymore, you're starting to see these stories come out that, people hadn't really shared before. Jared Verse was revered in that locker room as a teammate with the Rams. What kind of impact's that going to have? What if things don't go great initially? We've talked about the schedule, and their first 5 games are as tough as anyone, certainly in our division. They have the toughest opening stretch of 5 games. 4 of the 5 are against bona fide playoff teams. And the 5th game, I think, is the Giants. And even though they might not win a lot of games this year, you know what they're going to give you, and they're going to be physical and they're going to be hard to play, right? What if they get off to a poor start? We talked last year about how tightly Sean McVay had that team wound. He's talked openly this offseason about how he almost walked away from the game in 2022 because he couldn't handle the losing. What if, with all the moves that they made, it gets off to a poor start? How good's that locker room going to be? And then my final point would be this. We don't know yet if Chris Shula is a good defensive coordinator. And so just because you've handed him all this elite talent, you've upgraded their secondary, which was their biggest issue last year, there's still some questions about their inside linebacker group, in my opinion. But we don't know if Shula's going to be able to take all those ingredients and make a great dish out of it.
No, and I agree with you. And you know what's funny, Dan? You bring up that point about, the trade of a guy that was loved in a locker room like Verse was for the Rams. And it kind of made me think about a move Seattle made at one point coming off of a Super Bowl loss, where we traded a guy that was absolutely loved in the locker room for a guy that was supposed to put us over the top in trading Max Unger for Jimmy Graham. And I'm not saying the player-to-player comparison, I get it, Hall of Fame player, but sometimes the impact of trading away a guy that is loved and has respect in your locker room for a guy that maybe doesn't necessarily have that. Because remember, Jimmy Graham wasn't exactly the most loved guy in the world either when he came in, and how he was looked upon in Seattle. And he never kind of lived up to the billing. And I'm not saying Myles Garrett won't live up to the Myles Garrett billing, but sometimes when you mess with the chemistry of your locker room by trading a guy that's got a good foothold of being a voice and being something that, guys respect and want to, play with, sometimes that can erode you without even thinking about it. And sometimes these teams make these deals, and that's something that, people don't think about. And having a coaching background that I do, sometimes the guy that has the voice of the locker room and the hold of it is one of the most important guys, even though he may not be the superstar on your team. So it'll be interesting to see how the Rams handle that, to your point, if things are rocky to start. Mookie, I'm gonna pivot this to you in a way a little bit different than how it did with Dan and Brandon, but there's also another rumor now, because Myles Garrett has come to the Rams, that a certain other player may come out of retirement because they finally have another elite defensive line player to run with him. What do you make of the Myles Garrett impact on Aaron Donald? Do you think he comes out of retirement? And if he does, do you think he is anywhere close to being the player that he was towards the end of his career?
I don't think he comes out of retirement. He seemed pretty at peace as far as walking away as recently as the 2022 season. That was the year before he actually retired. Like just to have that ring, close out the Super Bowl. Honestly, he had as good a case as Cooper Kupp for winning Super Bowl MVP with the way he dominated the Bengals in the second half. But he had to deal with a shitload of losing. I mean, he was there for the Fisher years before McVay got there. Those first 3 seasons were rough. And he was able to get that ring. He was producing and then not winning, and then he was winning. He's a champion. We haven't heard a lot about him in retirement, and now this Myles Garrett thing's come out, and Jordan Schultz texts Aaron Donald and says, like, it's got me flirting or thinking about it. I think it's just a tease. I don't think he's going to come back. I think he'll stay retired. And if he does come back, I will cower in fear. But it's like, what do you mean, Russell Wilson would be just throwing stuff all over the ground? It's like, okay, well, actually, no, he wouldn't. He'd be saying, I retired and Donald came back just in time. Yeah. But the odds of him being, I don't deny he's going to be in great physical condition, but the odds of him just being into football shape and his immediate dominant self, those odds I'm not going to take. I don't think he'll be like super Aaron Donald, but maybe he doesn't need to be when he's got freaking Myles Garrett on his defensive line. The best pass rusher you played with prior to Myles Garrett in a hypothetical situation would be what, a half season of Von Miller and then Robert Quinn. And Robert Quinn has just kind of become a forgotten man over time, but still, yeah, when it comes to Donald returning, I don't think I'm going to worry just yet. As far as the defensive line, there's still just a ton of talent there. I am really glad, though, that the Rams burned their first-round pick on Ty Simpson instead of taking Reuben Bain. I think it would have been a very different story if they had drafted Bain, for example, and then traded versus like, okay, you got another guy in the pipeline because Byron Young's in his contract here, right? So you got another guy in cost control for 4, maybe 5 years, and then you trade for Myles Garrett. But they don't. They have a draft that had everybody scratching their heads. It's like, did they throw this draft on purpose as a smokescreen just so that they could make this Garrett move later? Yeah, it's just an odd conspiracy theory for me. But yeah, Myles is going to make a difference on this Rams roster, no doubt about it. I don't worry about his age at 30 because, I mean, he just broke the sack record. The elite pass rushers throughout NFL history have been able to age their game gracefully deep into their 30s. They've made other moves, trading for McDuffie. Now, will they play him at his best position on corner? Remains to be seen. They signed Jalen Watson from Kansas City as well, so they fixed their secondary up. But I see a case where if the Rams aren't as great as we think, it's because their offense took a step back, not their defense. And I argue that because the offensive line was great last year, but they were also, for the most part, very healthy. Now, when they were injured in that one game against the Falcons, the week after the Seahawks game, Alaric Jackson didn't play, Dotson didn't play. Stafford didn't look very MVP-like to me, did he? Just throwing picks.
And I believe they lost the game.
And they lost the game, although I'm not sure ESPN or any of the other media people would even acknowledge the Rams even lost any games last year.
The fans
Don't trigger me, Mookie. Don't you trigger me.
But you get my general idea. And then I look at the wide receiver position, and I see Puka Nacua having this eventful offseason, to put it very mildly. And you got Devontae Adams, who was more or less a red zone target than he was like a between the 20s type of receiver. After that, you're dealing with what, Mumfield, Jordan Whittington. I don't know if they're going to keep Xavier Smith after his muff punt. It's not an inspiring receiving group. At tight end, of course, they got Higbee, they got Parkinson, but I think the offense could end up regressing, and it might offset whatever improvements they make on defense.
I got one thing I want to just kind of add into this, and this is something I remember when we were talking about Max Crosby and the trade potentially Seattle could have had if it got worked out at the trade deadline. The one thing we kept coming back to was how good of a run defender Crosby is, along with his pass rushing ability. He is a very good run defender. When I've gone and watched Myles Garrett film, I don't see the same level of run defender. I see a great, phenomenal pass rusher, but I don't see the same level of a run defender. Sometimes the best way to mitigate a really good pass rusher is running the football consistently throughout a game and limiting their opportunities to get into their rhythm as a pass rusher. And I feel like, a lot of those situations I feel this year for Garrett with his sack record, he was able to get in a rhythm because teams threw more than run it because they couldn't run the ball because they were horrible teams at running the ball. This is where I think it'll be an interesting conversation to see how he handles being in the NFC West, where Kyle and Fleury and that, they're going to want to run the football, and they're going to run it 50 to 55% of the time and play action and not just sit and gun and drop back and throw. That's not what they live in. So it'll be interesting to see how that all goes. But guys, before we carry on with the show, we've got a quick thing to catch up on here for Dan and Brandon, which I will get on right after this. Oh, where'd it go?
Today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account when you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly.
All right, guys. So with that being said, let's kind of talk about what Seattle does to match this. Or do they? Do they hang out and don't do anything to the trade deadline? I know, Brandon, you and me see this very similarly. But Mookie, I'll start with you. Do you think Seattle needs to do something before the start of the regular season? Or do you think they can wait, hang out until the trade deadline?
I lean toward waiting until the trade deadline, fully acknowledging that blockbuster trades tend not to happen nearly as much midseason compared to the offseason. It's just, I mean, it's different than like Major League Baseball trade deadline or an NBA trade deadline where you have some sort of seismic trade midseason and eventually you have so many games to which you can eventually fit into that team system. Obviously, Seattle has benefited from the Rashid Shaheed trade and the Dunlap trades in years past, but those are not like humongous, holy shit trades. Like, let's say they trade for Max Crosby. But I think that I'm willing to wait this out. If the opportunity arises, sure, take it. But I'm willing to wait this out because remember, the Rams and Seahawks don't play until Christmas Day. There is a chance, I'm not saying it's a high chance, there's a chance that game can mean very little in terms of the playoff picture for a variety of reasons. And you'll have time to see how the Rams season goes, how your own season goes, how the 49ers season goes. And you can kind of assess whether you need that little extra juice. And in terms of like any trades that they would make, it would probably be for another edge rusher, I would think, whether that's Crosby or we were to you, I think we're talking, or you, Bryce and Dan, about Highsmith before the season, before we went on air, about the possibility that Highsmith could get dealt because Nick Herbig just signed a contract extension. And we were talking on Syndicate about could Seattle trade for Nick Herbig, for example. As I said on Tuesday's show with you, Bryce, when we were talking about Derick Hall, the Dante Fowler contract is so incredibly cheap at $2.5 million, and the other $2.5 million in incentives, that it's very possible that if things don't go as well as we think, and that Fowler just aged 25 years overnight, that he just becomes another MVS, and that they will make a splash play for a good pass rusher, certainly not a Garrett level, but whether it's like Thibodeau or Highsmith or somebody else, that sort of tier. And I think they don't absolutely need Max Crosby. They can just have a good pass rusher instead of just shooting for the absolute best. Either way, they have the draft capital, and I am so certain Seattle is going to make a trade at some point. They have 12 draft picks projected for next year. You look at their free agent list, they don't have a ton of free agents of consequence for the 2027 offseason. If they get Leonard Williams' contract extension done, Uchenna Nwosu becomes your top free agent. And I don't think they're going to keep Chenna. And after that, you might have some cap casualties or retirements with Kupp and Lawrence and Reed. But otherwise, the core of your roster is going to be sticking together for another couple of seasons. So the opportunity is there. The cap space is there for Seattle to take a swing. And even before the Garrett trade, it feels like that Schneider has been building this offseason in mind with the idea of, hey, we won the Super Bowl. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We're not going to be reckless. If we have the capital, then we can swing, as opposed to, trading for Jamal Adams and ending up with 3 draft picks the following year. To me, that's a better position to make a big swing for a high impact player.
No, and I think that's fair. Dan, what about you? I know you've got your sources and such, but where do you see Seattle doing? Do you think there's probably a bit of, hey, let's do something, or do you think they're more content hanging out and chill until the trade deadline?
I think the deadline makes more sense when you look at the roster, where it is now, and when you look at the schedule, right? Like Mookie said, the trade deadline comes and goes before we ever play the Rams for the first time, let alone the second time. And so it gives them time to evaluate. I think they can be as good as we expect them to be through the first 15 games as is. Now, they have conversations every day. There are some opportunities out there that might come up. You touched on it. Thibodeau, I think, gets moved at some point. I think Highsmith makes the most sense for the Steelers to move out of that group. They're going to have to do something with their cap. They literally don't have enough as we sit here today to take care of everything before the 53-man cut when you have to be compliant. And he's probably the one they can get the best return for. I don't think they're going to get what they want, or the market's going to bear what they want for TJ Watt because of his age and just his cap hit. And so they'll continue to explore those things. But I think right now the prices are all too high. And a lot of it has to do with the perception of what this 2027 draft class is going to be, right? Teams are going to try to leverage whatever assets they have to trade as much as they can. But you get to the deadline, prices come down because you're only getting a portion of a season from these players. So we also know the draft class a lot better at that time. That's what makes the most sense to me. I'm not saying they're locking it down, not exploring everything, because that's not John's way. He looks into things every day And, if we all knew the conversations that happened there on a daily basis, it would blow our minds, right? I got in a little bit of trouble online yesterday because I was having a conversation with a source, and he got a little excited and I got excited. And so I was a little too early in my enthusiasm online, and then talks changed because that's what happens. And so if we were to report every little moment that happens in those offices where they think they might have a deal about to get done, we'd all look really silly, and people would it'd be like the boy that cried wolf, right? We'd all just tune it out after a certain point. So I think the roster's in good shape right now. You certainly don't make a panic move. You don't go make a move because the Rams did. Let them do their thing their way. We're going to do things our way. We'll see you in week 16.
All right, Brandon. I know you and me see this very similarly. We've had our moments of kind of talking about it through your show chat. You're more of the mindset as I am, is we can wait and be patient, and who knows who might become available at the trade deadline, because there's teams currently right now that some people aren't thinking are going to be teams that by the trade deadline are punting and getting draft capital for next year's draft. With that being said, if you were to have between a Thibodeau and a Highsmith, I'm not going to throw Crosby in there, but a guy like a Thibodeau and a Highsmith become available to you at the trade deadline, which one of those two would you feel more inclined to go after if you were Seattle?
Highsmith. That's it's quite easy on that one. So I'm not a big believer in Thibodeau, though. I just think that he's a little bit of fool's gold to me. Looks the part, but I just don't ever trust that he's going to get to the part where that guy's going to be a dynamic, impactful part of a great defense. Just don't think it's ever going to happen. I might be wrong on that, but I stand pretty firm, and I have this take since he's been in college, and it's still remained true since college, so we'll see. Just the one quick point, too, and I know it was part of what you asked, but I think it's these other two gentlemen made some good points, and it's one thing to consider about this, knee-jerk reaction to doing this now versus waiting to the deadline. Where's John been as best as a trader? Is it trading max prices and getting returns? Because you can make an argument, Jamal Adams, you gave up more for Jamal than probably the Rams just gave up for Myles Garrett. Not that great. Jimmy Graham, Max Unger, when you guys were just mentioning about losing him as a young, and the first round pick on top of it, didn't work out the best, did it? But then when we get him in actual market opportunities, now he's been at his best. And those do tend to present themselves. And now you have so much draft capital you can throw at a team. So let's just go back to last year. Hey, Raiders, we willing to do max? Maybe we'll do max if you give us 2 first-round picks. Great. Here's 2 first-round picks. Oh, you know what? Pete's now kind of shutting us down on this. All right, here's a second. That shut him up? We're going to have a hard time getting Pete to say no at that point. Yeah, so let's get this done. You have the ability to go over the top on any deal now to get it done with the draft capital you have. And I'm also gentlemen, I'm a little greedy here. What if we just built that good of a roster and it can get through this year and it can be dominant again, even better than it was last year, and all of the Rams flailing and all of their spinning and all of their busy work doesn't amount to really the hill of the beans when it comes down to the bottom line tax, and then you've got all these draft picks. Mm-hmm. Remember that Mookie will remember this one, and Dan, you too, I'm sure, maybe Darko Milicic going to the Pistons at a time when they had that championship, and it's like a freebie pick, like situation. Well, wouldn't that be kind of cool to be in that place rather than feeling like we've got to use all the ammunition? I ask, do we?
It's a good point. And that's the thing with having 12 or 13, draft picks potentially next year. 12 picks, I think, is what we got currently right now. But, again, you don't know if there's certain guys that won't be on this roster. DeMarcus Lawrence may not be back. Chenna. So you will have roles to fill. And if, to your point, Brandon, if you can go through this season and you don't have to make a trade because you're just still that good, and a Jared Ivey has more impact this year and some of these other guys are already on the roster, and to your point, all the flailing that the Lambs do and they can't actually muster it, and somehow they're worse off for it, man, do you set yourselves up for a really good stretch here being the most dominant team in the NFC West.
Hey, guys, I got a question for Bryce and Mookie. Where are your cats?
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't.
Come on,
have
guys,
one.
dropping the ball over there.
I'm sorry.
I
had the facial hair for it.
There's somebody in my household who has a cat allergy, but I've developed an appreciation for cats over time. After a nightmare sleepover, had like 11 cats in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I went, nah, I can't be doing that.
That's
just one bedroom, but a
some
whole lot of cats.
is there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but unfortunately, we're losing out on the cats on behalf of the Syndicate.
Yeah,
Maybe we got to find some dogs.
You talk about
Yeah, there
clickbait.
you go.
This is clickbait right here, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh man. All right, guys. Well, we talked about the Myles Garrett impact. There's another thing that kind of happened that kind of followed the Myles Garrett trade, and that was Derick Hall got his extension done. And I think, at least for me, at a shocking extension price tag that I didn't expect to be the case for Derick Hall. When, I know Brandon, yourself, Dan, all of us, we were like, okay, are we going to wait this out till potentially free agency and he's going to want Boye Mafe money?
I seem to recall advocating for signing him now, and not all of you agreed a couple of weeks ago. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
Which
didn't
guy
know he's
you're
going to get
talking
this
about.
kind of discount. I didn't know you're going to get the.
And
I didn't know you get the coupon clippings and the Tuesday special and all of it. I didn't know you could stack. We were able to stack discounts. I didn't know that was a thing.
That's exactly what I told Bryce. I said, I bet Brandon likes it because of this right here.
Yeah, this is the value. Some of the numbers are still to be finalized. I don't think it's even come out. I just checked recently on Over the Cap, so some of it's kind of spitballing here with the cap hit in
Oh, it's the
2006
Seahawks. It
salary.
won't be out till August.
Yeah, exactly. But the guarantee, the contract value, and the average per year are pretty much on point. Guys, I didn't expect this to happen. Like, this to me is unreal value for a player that potentially is still going to take another step. He had a really good Super Bowl there at the end of the year, 2 sacks in it. So ended the season with 4, I believe, if you do the whole totality of the season. And he missed part of it with injury and a suspension.
Mm-hmm.
I could not fathom, hey, Derick Hall is going to sign for $42 million. Because this, to, just add on to Brandon's point about draft capital and draft picks for next year, this affords you so much flexibility with your cap even going forward. You don't have a $60 million pass rusher on your books. You've got a guy that's making 42. So, Brandon, I'll start with you because, as Dan pointed out, you were the one that was kind of more at that point before, knowing this was what the value was going to be, was like, well, let's just wait and see what he produces. How do you feel about this whole contract and how this sets Seattle up going forward?
Well, it really can't be understated that this is a contract that has to be unpacked on a couple different levels beyond just, what he's getting as a player here. It is the fact that the discount, I joked a second ago, but it's really not overstating it. Boye Mafe just got a $20 million a year deal, and he is a better player, and he would be slated. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if Derick Hall's agents aren't drunk today, 6 sheets to the wind, then I'm a liar. Because right now they're sitting there kicking air going, $22 million. And I think he referenced this yesterday in his press conference, and I understand players will say this sometimes, but the proof is in the pudding. This is going to be basically a 4-year, $44 million deal when it's all said and done. That's $11 million per year, while at the same time, Mafe just got the $20 million. That's half. That's half. And I think what's phenomenal about this is that we don't see discounts from players in the NFL like ever. I mean, we can count on our hand the number of quarterbacks, because that's the position that everyone gloms onto. Is, why don't you take a discount? Well, there's very few that we've run across in our history we've ever seen who's been willing to do that. And here we have a player on his first major contract, not a former first-round pick, second-round pick paid all right, but on his first major contract, taking a discount and referencing the back that we're trying to build this thing in here. And what did we see Jackson Smith do, by the way? What did we see Jackson do?
Yep.
It's the very same thing. So this is not just a one-off situation here. You saw Ernest Jones' contract and $11 million per year and how much that discount that looks. We can go step by step, blow by blow on this, but you're starting to see this as a trend on this team. And it's one of the most beautiful developments we could ever see, because it indicates that these guys are getting it and getting it again in a unique way that cannot be understated, because this does not happen in the NFL. Nobody's taken any discounts.
Well, and this gives me, I'll be honest, and Dan, I'll go to you next on this, but this makes me feel like, given to Brandon's point, the mentality within this organization and the way these guys are thinking, that there's a chance that this could lead to Sam Darnold next year. We've all already talked about it, being up potentially for an extension, not going, hey, I need to max out my value as a quarterback. If he puts together another year like he just did, he might do very well what Derick Hall did and go, yeah, I'm okay leaving money out on the market because I want to be here. This is where I want to be. So, Dan, when you saw this come through, what was your initial reaction and thoughts on this?
Yeah, really, really surprised and really pleased, especially when I saw the numbers. And I think this this points out a couple of things. First of all, it really does tell us how the organization feels about Derick Hall versus Boye Mafe, because to any of our knowledge, I don't believe there was any legitimate reporting last year at this time that they even made a concrete offer to Boye Mafe. I just don't. He's a guy that they wanted to see another year of production from, and it just kind of sounds like they weren't ever sold on him as a long-term piece of this foundation, where they obviously feel that way about Derick Hall. And I've never been one to, I know some fans will say that certain players should take a discount. They should take less money than the market bears so that, you can spread the cap around. I've never said that. It's a violent game. You never know when your career is going to end in this thing. I mean, just look what Brandon Ayuk is going through right now, right? One play could change the rest of your future and your career. And so, get as much money as you can, especially on your second contract, because that's mostly that's going to be your best opportunity to get generational wealth. But when you look at Derick Hall, he just turned 25 years old in late March, and you see the improvement year after year. You saw the improvement late in last year, how effective he was in the playoffs. And then when you know his story and his background and what he had to overcome as a kid physically and everything else, and just the kind of person he is, the Seahawks talk about how the person matters as much as the player. And they're not just spinning words for the sake of it. They mean it. And now, they backed it up here by rewarding a player that they view as a concrete piece of their foundation. And I'll tell you this, I feel a whole lot better about the 2027 roster as we sit here, because until yesterday, the only edge player who was under contract for 2027, not including like the undrafted free agent guys who get a standard non-guaranteed 3-year deal, was DeMarcus Lawrence. And we're not sure if he's going to play next year. So at least now we can look ahead to next year and we can see a piece in place in that edge group and at a really reasonable number. So just win all the way around.
Yeah. And Mookie, for you, the story about Derick Hall, I think even makes this that much more awesome for the fact that we see a guy get to stay here, gets extended, gets money and generational wealth to a point, but a guy that, given what he's gone through in his life, realized how important it was to be in a place that appreciated him and that he loves to be.
Yeah, and just to reference his press conference from Wednesday, he said, "This place is really special to me." Says, obviously the money enhances our job and what we do, but it's really about the love of the game and knowing what I'm getting myself into when I come to work every day. This is a pristine organization. John, Mike, all those guys do a great job of letting us be ourselves and truly come out to compete. I know we're going to win a lot of games and a lot of championships here, so I'm willing to sacrifice whatever everyone else thought I would be able to make to be able to be here and be with this team. Because there's no doubt in my mind that if there was a scenario where Hall had a contract year leap, he would be out of Seattle's price range. Even if he had like 6.5 sacks, so which is not even his career high, that would be enough for a pass rush needy team in the offseason to go, we will throw $23 million a year at you because we're assuming the cap goes up, all that good jazz. So to get him at effectively $11 million a year over these next 4 seasons is a steal. And the fact that when his contract runs out, he'll still be in his late 20s. If the best is yet to come, the opportunity for him to really amass superstar wealth is still on the table before his quote unquote athletic prime starts to dip. So I'm happy for Derick Hall. I think that, again, great things are coming for him. He's going to be one of the cornerstone pieces of Seattle's pass rush. And just referencing back to the Russell Wilson retirement, we obviously have to bring up that Seattle's championship roster is not possible without trading Russ. And Seattle didn't waste the draft picks that they got. Who was the last person drafted as a direct result of the Wilson trade was Derick Hall. And Derick Hall had a whale of a game in the Super Bowl, and now he's got this contract extension as the payoff. So I'm excited to see what he can provide with an increased role in this defense, because now that Maffe's out of the way, I don't expect Fowler to have a huge workload. I think that they anticipate that Derick Hall is going to be not just a great pass rusher, but continue to be a very good edge setter and run defender.
So I'm going to try and pull a Mookie here, guys, and state something from NFL history. I may epically fail at this because Mookie is the wizard at it, but I'm going to give it a go here. The Russell Wilson trade, okay, just tying this a little bit back into Russ. and the effect it has had on the Seahawks organization from being able to build a championship core out of a lot of those draft picks, Devin Witherspoon, Derick Hall, the list goes on of guys that were involved in that drafting part from Russ. I think there is an argument to be made that the Russell trade has had as much effect on the Seahawks organization as when the Cowboys traded away Herschel Walker.
It's not done yet either. It's not done yet. Compensatory picks are still coming down the line along with what we have in-house still here.
Correct. And that's where I'm saying, because you look at what the Herschel Walker trade did for that Dallas team of the 90s. You got Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin and all these guys. You built all of this stuff out of that championship team from your draft capital that you were able to get in the Herschel Walker trade. It's very much similar to what Russ was able to give Seattle with all these picks. And to your point, Brandon, all the compensatory picks that are still coming through. There's a chance that this keeps another 3 years here. We could still have more effect from that Russell trade.
And little known fact, Russell Wilson actually introduced Teasley to John Schneider. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, guys. So the quick thing here, I'm going to go around the table real quick. Dan, I'll start with you. Next player to get an extension.
Honestly, I think it's Leonard Williams. Just because of, my understanding is that, both sides want it. It's a mutual feeling that it's going to get done at some point before the season starts. And I think, the issue with the Devin Witherspoon negotiations is his agency, the agents that represent him are the same agents that represent Christian Gonzalez. And so they're trying to get both those deals done at the same time in two very different players, two very different ways. And so I'm sure they're trying to get top dollar. They're trying to best the Trent McDuffie deal for both of their clients. And so trying to juggle those two when they're very different players who go about what they do very differently. And so trying to get, top of the market money for Christian Gonzalez, who's a lockdown outside corner, is one thing. And then you come back to Seattle and you go, well, I want more money for my client than that. But maybe significantly more because you have him doing so many other things. I just think it sounds like they're much more complex negotiations. And so I think those might take a little more time. I think Leo gets done first. The other part of that is when they get Leo done, depending, of course, on how they structure it. But if they just kind of stick to their typical John Schneider, Joey Lane structure format, they're going to clear some cap space, which will then make some of these other things possible. So I think it's Leo next.
Brandon, what about you? Who's next on the docket for the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, I would trust in, Dan having a little bit of some connection on this one, and it does make a lot of sense with him going in the final year. I will say that on the Leonard Williams signing, and it's one of the things you got to give John's props for, is he was already starting to do some of this void year stuff, even when it wasn't clear that we were a pure contender as we were. 2 voidable years put on the back end of the current Leonard Williams deal. Still approximately $13 million of bonus money that you have to deal with. So I'm with what Dan said on, if you're going to do a new deal, two different things. Number one, lower down the cap hit for 2026. And then number two, utilization of the void years. You're coming off the Super Bowl. You don't have to go into Eagle territory here. But part of the reason that you were able to build the roster a little bit more was because you could put about $9 million of Leonard Williams' salary into 2027 and 2028. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
Charge the credit card a little bit. This is when you get that luxury.
Just a little flick. Just a little Apple
tap.
Pay, man. Just a little tappy tap. Little tap it in. Just tap it in.
Mookie, what about you? Is it Spoon or Big Cat for you?
I think it'll be Big Cat, and that Spoon still gets done by or during training camp. And just to reiterate rather for our listeners and viewers, Spoon has been at OTAs, but he's not really participating in drills or anything because you want to suffer a catastrophic injury and cost yourself potentially tens of millions of dollars. I think Christian Gonzalez is actually not at OTAs.
He has not been attending. Yeah, they're doing it different ways.
Yeah, so there's your difference there. Again, OTAs voluntary. Mandatory minicamp may be a different story as far as what Gonzalez does. We know that Spoon and everybody else have been able to buy in. So I think that they'll get a Leonard Williams deal done. It'll be maybe his last real big contract of his career. That he's 31 years old or thereabouts. And while I love for him to age like Calais Campbell and still be a freakish player at 40, there are outliers, and Calais I think might be one of those outliers. But no reason to believe that Big Cat's declining anytime soon. I had an outside the box suggestion maybe for somebody else who could be on the extension horizon, whose contract is expiring soon. That would actually be Jalen Sundell. But the counter to my own argument is Sundell is a restricted free agent. So there's not as much urgency. But the other bit is the center position, no matter how much Tyler Linderbaum and the Raiders tried to blow up the whole market, is still not the highest paid position or anywhere near it along the offensive line. And I don't think they're going to bring Olu back. They didn't draft a center. I think that they like Sundell enough that they would probably try and extend him on the cheap. But again, it's not an urgent thing now that since he's an RFA versus a UFA. So I think that they'll extend Leonard, and we'll all be super happy about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to change the narrative. It's going to be a clean sweep. I think Big Cat's next. I think Spoon gets done at some point. I will do what Mookie did, though, and I'll throw out another name that I think potentially could get done. That's a guy that's on an expiring deal, and potentially they want to keep in the fold here, and that's Zach Charbonnet. I could see them giving a 1-year or a 2-year deal to Zach Charbonnet at some point here early on in the season, or that, because outside of Jadarian Price, they do not have anybody in that room that is past 2026 season. And I think they want to keep Zach Charbonnet in this fold. I think they may work a deal out with him, even though he is recovering from the knee injury. I think there's enough goodwill in that building with what Zach has done that they give him an extension potentially. So, all right, guys. So besides that, and we've talked about kind of, who we prioritize next, I got to ask, in overall, how sick are you guys of hearing about the fact that the 2-point play on Thursday night is the only reason Seattle won the Super Bowl? And Dan, I'll start with you because I already ranted on my previous show about it to a very epic proportion. So I'll let you start because it's driving me nuts that is the reason Seattle won the Super Bowl.
What's a number bigger than an infinity? Because whatever that infinity plus 1 is how sick I am of that whole thing. And honestly, I think I feel like if there's anything Sean McVay could do, maybe personally, like they need to shut that down, but they just kind of keep precipitating it themselves as well. It just makes them look bad. I understand the frustration with it. If you're on the other side, I totally get it. I can recall times in my lifetime as a fan where, I put way too much emphasis on one particular play, changing the course of an entire season or even the trajectory of any given team. It really is ridiculous because, and it's not even, forget about whether you think that was a proper execution of the rules or the way the replay was called into it and all of that. Forget about all of that. But the assumption that so many big name people who otherwise are viewed as very, very smart football minds, coaches, players, analysts, who think that if that play had just gone the other way, the Rams win that game and then go on and win the Super Bowl because the NFC Championship game would have been at home. That's a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of gymnastics, mental gymnastics to make that work, right? I mean, the Rams went and lost their 2 games after that, to 2 inferior teams. And look how well the Seahawks play on the road. It's not a given that they would have won just because the game was at SoFi. So it really, I don't think they're doing themselves any favor by not shutting this down. And maybe it's just got a life of its own now and it's out in the fandom, but anyone who makes a living being an analyst in this game too should just, it's time to move on.
Brandon, how do you feel about it?
About the 2-point conversion being the sole reason that we won the Super Bowl?
No, not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up.
Total fabrication.
Total fabrication, and Dan is absolutely positively right to first point a big bright spotlight over at Sean McVay. You started this. This isn't just a fan thing. You lit the fire and then stepped away, and then you continue to perpetuate the fire throughout the offseason with the ridiculous ass rule that you tried to present. This is so dumb and beyond the pale. I can't believe it. Yeah, Dan, we've had problems with plays that have shut our seasons down. When the Rams had DJ Dallas get interfered with at the end of the game and it stopped a drive where Russell Wilson was about to mount one of those fourth quarter comebacks. Or I don't know if you remember the game where we had the dueling offensive holding calls where Tyler Lockett extends out. That's called. It's not called on Harvey Britt going way back. Or 2 years ago with Devin Witherspoon on Puka Nacua in the back of the end zone, and it's going to stop their drive, and now it's going to give us the ball back, but here's a phantom holding call, reset the downs. At least those were the wrong call. The call was correct. It took too long. The call was correct. It came from New York. The call was correct. It doesn't feel good. The call was correct. I've never seen a fan base bitch or moan more about a call that is unequivocally right and that they would tell you was the right call. Yeah. It is so wild to me, and the fact that you mentioned one play and this all comes down is so stupid. It's dumb. But why it's gotten to the analysts is that it starts on, and then the fans sitting there like Muppets. It's a 2 point. It's a 2 point. It's a 2 point. And then it gets out to the analysts, and now it's like infected their soul. And that's why I hated the whole thing from the jump on this, is that you could see this start to come like a pandemic laying waste across the fucking wasteland. I hate it because it's diminishing our Super Bowl in a certain way. And that's okay, because we're going to get the last laugh on this, because when we come back around and we're so diminished, and we come back around and the Rams are so favored to win this thing, we're going to be held all that much higher, historically speaking, if we can go and get the job done.
Well, and even I'll take one little redirect there. You look at it from another angle, everything that's happened in the last 72 hours, the Rams going out and getting Myles Garrett, and then this 2 point thing kind of coming to it, have its another life. I think it's like on its fifth life now, life cycle is
won't die.
Now the Seahawks aren't the favorite anymore. Now we're the underdog again. We're not supposed to win our division now. We're going to have to fight for a wild card. So guess what? The defending Super Bowl champions with one of the youngest, deepest, most complete rosters in the league and 9 home games this year get to play with a chip on their shoulder now. Right? The whole, you're the hunted now and not the...
And who's the pressure on too, Dan? Who's the pressure on? And to your point on this, who's the pressure on too in addition to this?
Swings right back to the Rams.
I just, my whole thing with it, guys, is I got so fed up with it, because you hear Schefter talk about it and it's on ESPN and all that shit. And the thing that drives me nuts is it feels to me this is the most disrespect a Super Bowl champion has ever gotten in an offseason. Like, let's go back and think of all the other Super Bowl champions we have seen throughout the years. This is the most disrespected version of a Super Bowl champion, where people calling it a Mickey Mouse Super Bowl win, and no one really cares that Seattle won, and they shouldn't have really won it, and all these, like, it drives me absolutely nuts when we dominated throughout the season. After we lost to the Rams in SoFi, which was a game, again, to my point on my show, the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl because your fucking head coach sucks at game management and has constantly proven his inability to handle clutch situations. He shits the bed. Genius. Big situation, his ass gets about that tight, and he can't do what needs to be done and make the right call. Plain and simple. Mookie, I'll give it to you now.
I do recall that the Rams retook the lead later on in that game, right? Like they scored easily in overtime on one of Puka Nacua's 500 catches in that game. All that their defense had to do was not give up 8 points, and at worst they tie, because a tie would have also given the Rams the division, or at least kept them in first place. And instead, they gave up 8 points to Sam Darnold. I think that what's different about this Seahawks team and the way they're perceived versus when they won with the Legion of Boom is that the year before, you could see the rise of the Seahawks. And the Seahawks were a trendy Super Bowl pick that season because of Russell Wilson, because of Marshawn Lynch, that running game, and because the defense soared past San Francisco and ended up being the best defense in the league. This Seahawks team, nobody expected them to be Super Bowl good. Heck, even our own fan base, the bulk of us thought, okay, playoff good, sure. Win the Super Bowl, small percentage of which at least 2 of them are in this chat right now. But otherwise, the national media gave it no mind. Like Sam Darnold, the way he ended last season, he can't be a Super Bowl quarterback. Can you really win with a second-year head coach and a bunch of non-superstars on offense and defense? No, they are in many ways almost the antithesis of the Legion of Boom. It's not a bunch of big personalities and like big egos involved. It's just a damn exceptionally coached team. And Mike McDonald as a personality is also very different contrasting styles compared to Pete Carroll. So not having that, Hollywood level player on this roster has kind of, we know how national and sports media is in general. They go for the glamour. They go for the big names. They go for what gets clicks, what gets ratings, and the Seahawks don't give them that. And my response would be, we do not care. We did not care. When it comes to the Rams and the Seahawks, let's face it, evenly matched teams. First game, 2 points, even after Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. Second game, Seattle wins by 1, even after Seattle's -3 in the turnover department. And then the third game, Seattle could have won by double digits if Reek didn't commit that silly, taunting penalty. But even still, Seattle won that game by 4. So the margins are so thin. And to me, the Myles Garrett trade does not make the Rams now suddenly massively better than Seattle. I think Bryce said it the other night. Starting wise, you put the top of the rosters against each other, the Rams probably have the advantage now. 1 through 70, adding the practice squad.
Yeah.
Seahawks have got that depth. And we know that injury luck plays a role in your ability to contend. And the Rams and Seahawks were in the NFC Championship game in part because they were mostly healthy rosters at the time that they faced each other for the third and final time. But if the Rams have a rash of injuries, that team can't cope. Seattle had their fair share of injuries during the regular season, and they were able to get contributions from, Ty Okada and George Holani and several others who had to step up to the plate. So I think that the Rams' obsession is just because they're in the LA Rams. And I mean, the Chargers don't even get that much attention. Like, everybody still calls them the San Diego Chargers. Hell, sometimes I do. But the Rams push, I think, is just because of who they are. They are the Lakers. They are the Dodgers of the NFL in that sense, and that they got the superstar quarterback. They got now the superstar pass rusher. And, of course, Sean McVay being the maybe future broadcaster. He is so, such a darling in the media and has been for so long that they just fixate on them. And anything that goes against their own narrative, it's suddenly can't comprehend it. And I hope that the Seahawks can just shut up the Rams one more time, and hopefully once and for all.
Let me add just one more little tidbit.
Yeah,
Sorry, Brandon.
No, you're good.
This assumption that's widely held from my vantage point by Rams fans that somehow we only won and went to the Super Bowl because we were able to host the NFC Championship game, right? That it was at home. So they're literally saying they don't think their own team can beat us in Seattle. Those same Rams fans, I assure you, a year prior, what were they saying? The home field advantage is gone. Lumen Field's not a factor anymore. They're not as good at home. You can't have it both ways.
No, and this inconsistency exists all over the place on this assessment of things, Dan, because they're conflating luck for surprise. Well, you surprised us last year, so therefore it's luck rather than skill, rather than just being that good. And that's what continues to kind of push on here, that to me just drives me endlessly crazy on this, because I just never see any team referenced this way. And as well, it's the opposite. The pathway the Seattle Seahawks had to take in order to win their Super Bowl was not one of luck, but as hard a path as you're going to get. Having to win the division a second time in the playoffs, taking things like DVOA that has Seattle, I think, is the 11th all-time best team. The same DVOA, by the way, that loved the Rams team last year, saw that conference championship as an all-time matchup. There's no higher DVOA combination of teams than that matchup last year in the conference championship. So we had to go up against this test, the same test you guys revere and tell us over and over is the best thing ever. We had to go against that test and go against it one extra time and yet still defeated it. It should remove completely luck from the factor, right? If we'd played him twice, caught him early in the year, Stafford was out of the game, these are the ways you reference that, but they use it in a way that's not applicable.
You know what else is dumb? I got one more thing. Now you got me all fired up. I got one more thing. If when that play happened, Charbonnet's body language had been different. Oh God. And he ran and dove on the ball. We wouldn't be having this conversation today. It would be the exact same execution of the rule, the exact same outcome, but because he kind of wandered over there, even though he did say later, someone pointed this out in the comments that we're trained to do that, but he casually reached over and picked it up. And so some Rams fans try to insinuate that he really didn't know that was a live ball. We wouldn't be talking about if he had just hustled a little bit.
You're touching on something though here, Dan, which is really the crux of this year, which is the fact that Mike McDonald trains these guys to pick up loose balls and Sean McVay did not. Mm-hmm. And that no Ram fans want to take any, they all flap their hands away from that one. They don't like that one.
Yep.
They ain't got nothing to say on that one. And it's like, yeah, this is what coaching's about. There's things some coaches lock in on. There's some things other coaches lock in on. And Bryce can attest to this. You offensive coaches, Bryce, you guys get starry eyes for your offensive side of the ball, man. You know, defense and other things, special teams, it becomes these necessary evil things. I'm not knocking you. It's just the nature of the beast with you boys. And that's what you get seeing in this kind of situation with these fine-tuned details. It's the same thing with Belichick through all the years that he used to do on some of the minutia stuff that he would get into with his players. But then it would give them edges on game days that they're teaching towards their players that you are not. And it's important. It differentiates teams.
Can I just, this is one thing I kind of want to throw out there, and I am an offensive coordinator, and that's my cup of tea. I have done more studying probably in the last 5 years on how defensive coaches think, how defensive coaches run practice, because I'll say this. You look at NFL history, the most successful coaches, head coaches at winning championships tend to be defensive-minded coaches. To Brandon's point, they focus on things differently from that aspect. Bill Belichick, like really, you can probably put Andy Reid and Bill Walsh as the two coaches that have an offensive background that are probably the most successful. Outside of that, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, you know, there's a whole bunch of names I can rattle off for the defensive side that have really stood the test of time. And I will say this, and some people may not like it from the NFC West counterparts, but we have the best fucking head coach in the division. He does the best job of preparing his entire team to go and win football games, not just one side of it. He learned from his first year. And you look at what happened last year with this team. And this is where, again, his game management was better last year in crucial situations. Look at, and a prime example, look how Mike handled the 2-point conversion to win the Thursday night game. Let's play timeout here, McVay. You show me what you're going to do, and I'm going to make sure I have the last laugh and get the final timeout in to make sure we get the right play in for Clint. And you could hear him talking to Clint in the mic'd up part of that. Hey, we're going to do this. They're going to do this, and we're going to take one more timeout so you come up with your best play. Show them one thing, and we'll do something else.
Mm-hmm. I just want to add to the context of the 2-point conversion, the Charbonnet play. There's something called the butterfly effect. You cannot assume that the game just plays the exact same play calling from the Rams up to versus when it's a tied game. Because if you remember, when there was a tie game, I think the teams exchanged punts, and then the Rams were able to get a go-ahead field goal attempt, which they missed. And need I remind everybody, you know what happened after that game? The Rams fired their special teams coordinator because they missed a field goal and gave up a huge punt return touchdown that started the whole comeback. But anyway, if let's say that Seattle doesn't give up another touchdown in regulation, they're down 2. Even if they're down 5 and they give up a field goal, they're in 4-down mode for the rest of the game, as opposed to they had an effort to try and win the game in regulation in a tie game. Darnold gets sacked, whatever. They play it conservatively and then trust their defense to get another stop because they can just punt on 4th down. Totally different situation. It could have ended with Seattle winning by 31-30. And then the whole debate just blows up in your face. And look, we're a fan base that is probably still a little bit bitter about Super Bowl 40. And yes, there were a lot of bad calls, plural. But we also are, most of us are willing to acknowledge that Seattle kind of made some of their own downfall. And by that, I mean, Jeremy Stevens dropped a lot of passes in that game. That, you know, it was one of the reasons that Seattle didn't win that Super Bowl. But when it comes to saying that it's a lot different than the Rams and media people saying that 2-point conversion decided the game. No, it didn't. It was a component of the game. It was part of the story of the game. There was still a lot of time for the Rams to still win it. And as I said before, they took the lead. They were up 7 and still couldn't close the deal. And that's your game, and that's your season right there. So in a game of fine margin, Seattle did the little things better. And that, to me, was the defining tagline for the Seahawks season. They did the little things better than anybody else.
All right, guys. Well, we've got a bunch of super chats and comments that are off on the side here. So the last thing we're going to talk about before we get into that quickly, Ian Rappaport, I think this kind of gets muddled under everything else that's occurred in the last little bit, had an interesting comment / report on the Seattle Seahawks sale, saying that there is a very good chance that this team could be sold in August and that the league may have a league meeting or an emergency meeting because somebody is in place. And he has now called the Seahawks market robust? And obviously Wickersham's report came out a month or so ago saying it was soft and the Seahawks, didn't have it, and it's all of a sudden changed. Mookie, I'll start with you. What did you make of Ian Rappaport's report that there's a good chance the Seahawks could potentially be sold in August?
Man, don't you love it when things go from soft to robust? Anyway, the
we need a sponsorship deal with a certain
yeah. Oh man,
didn't even
Well
need
played.
to see a doctor for that either. But as far as the reports, there was a part of me going like, can't we just wait this out until the season starts and maybe Jody will raise the 12 flag one last time? But it's also kind of like the sooner the better. I just kind of want to know who's going to be the next ownership group, because I don't think it'll be an individual. It's going to be a group of people owning the Seahawks. And the last we heard about it was like one of the former owners of the Celtics. And I think he sold his majority stake. And then somebody who's invested in the 49ers right now would have to withdraw from that investment and go to a winning organization in Seattle. And then there's the bogus reports about like Zuckerberg and Tim Cook. I don't think it's going to be a tech giant buying the Seahawks. I think it's going to be somebody with a genuine sports background. I'm pretty sure that the Allen family is going to make sure that the next set of owners, they're going to have the best interest of the franchise in mind, and that they'll also pay up a good price. I think that Seattle will end up being worth like $9 billion or $10 billion. I mean, how much did the Commanders go for? Like $8 or $7 billion or something like that? And then the Broncos got sold recently. I mean, this is the Super Bowl champions. They play in a pretty significant market. Seattle's not a small market, relatively speaking. And they've got one of the best global fan bases, not city fan base. Go watch the last two international games they played, the only ones they played. The game in London, practically a Seahawks home game. The game in Munich, practically a Seahawks home game, but in Germany. At some point, they're going to do another international game, either next year or the year after, and maybe give up one of those games at Lumen. And it's probably going to sound like another Seahawks home game. They have become one of the biggest NFL brands out there. So no shit, I think they're going to be worth a ton of money. This is totally different than the 05 season when they made the Super Bowl. And they're like 9,000 fans there at Ford Field compared to all the Steelers fans. The fan base has grown so much from the Legion of Boom days to now, and everything else about the Seahawks as an organization has grown into something of a recognizable name up there with some of the more storied franchises who've been around a lot longer than Seattle.
Brandon, what about you? What did you make of the little Rappaport nugget there?
I kind of expected this was always going to be about the timeline. I thought June originally was my prediction for when the sale would go through once we were hearing about it out there in Mobile, that the news had been broken out by Robert Kraft trying to throw Seattle off before the game. And so this does seem to be in alignment with that. That's what happens in past history when there's the announcement of team for sale, then team becomes sold. So we'll have to just kind of wait and see who it is going to be. And hopefully it's somebody that's committed. I don't think, as I've always said, like a lot of like what Mookie just said, you're not going to see Jody at this point steer this thing so well. And at this point, send it into the shoals now. She's going to get this to good hands. I think that they've done a good deliberate process on getting the right one in here. And I'm not worried on it in the least. I also like it getting done now because you then have no worries about, hey, what if we got to go do an aggressive move? What if we got to go take on $150 million in escrow for a contract extension? Well, there's no, we got to keep things clean for the new owner. We got to let them have no, free and clear, baby. Let's let it rip. And one other thing, just on to Mookie's point, I think an argument can be made that no owner is being able to have the opportunity to walk into as beautiful a situation as just about anywhere in sports. You have, I know they're not needing stadium improvements, but you got Super Bowl roster, youngest coach, best general manager maybe in the sport. You're stacking up 12 picks into next year's draft. You got 2 extra third rounders. Your cap situation is as clean as it gets. No issues in-house at all. It's pretty good.
Also, an amazing training facility that's getting a bunch of massive upgrades now as well to make it one of the top facilities in the NFL. So no kidding. Dan, what about you? What did you make of it?
I mean, the sooner the better. And so I was encouraged by the report because you don't want that happening in the middle of a season. Then it can be a little bit of a distraction. If it gets done in August, that's perfect. Get it out of the way by the time the season starts. And I'm with Brandon. I really don't have any anxiety about who it might ultimately be. I think the reports of the fact that the market really has picked up and there are multiple new buyers that we don't know about Like, I was encouraged by the Grossbeck Vital group because Grossbeck was really well respected for the work he did with Celtics there and how he let the people that he puts in place, good people, do their jobs and doesn't meddle or get in the way of them. So I think it's going to ultimately be a name that hasn't even been discussed yet, maybe even a name that none of us are familiar with, depending on what walk of life or area of business they come from. But so yeah, sooner the better. If it gets done in August, I think that's ideal. Get it out of the way before the season starts. And then the last thing I'll say on it is this: kudos to Jody for how she's handled this, because a lot of other owners in the same situation might put the clamps a little bit on spending if there's an impending sale coming down. I just talked to Curtis Allen last night, and he threw a number at me that blew me away. So the Seahawks have spent $400 million in cash already this year. John Schneider said when the announcement first came out that the team was going to be officially placed on the market, he said, "Hey, business as usual. Jody's not putting any restrictions on us. She's putting her money where her mouth is," and they were able to make some really big moves without any hesitation that involved a lot of cash. And that's only going to make, to Brandon's point, that's only going to make that new owner even happier with his shiny new toy.
That's the one key thing here, I think, for me, is I'm in agreement with you guys. The before the season would be ideal. Get it done, get it over with. And you know what? It'll be an awesome first season for an owner to come into. To Brandon's point, you're coming off a Super Bowl win. Your fan base is back. Like we Dan, you mentioned it last year that the 12s are back. Like that was a big thing that we had of contention, being like, hey, the stadium's not the same. It was back to being what it was. I can't wait to be down there when I go down for the Chargers game this year in early October. It's going to be exciting. And what more excitement does a new owner need to see his fan base and the way that that city responds to this team after a Super Bowl, championship?
Yeah. And one thing, I know it's been discussed, like Lumen Field they need a new stadium or whatever, because Lumen's one of the older, not highly renovated stadiums. I know they've just changed up some seats at the Hawks Nest. They'll have natural grass only for the FIFA World Cup, but it's going to go back to turf soon. But let's say that they just want to do upgrades to Lumen that are like adding several thousand more seats, adding more box seats, so, suite seats or whatever. I don't think it's a super big deal. They could just go play at Husky Stadium like last time. It's a newer Husky Stadium, unless there's some sort of stipulation that prevents them from doing that. And they could just be away for a year. They can make Husky Stadium, when the Huskies are good, has notoriously been a loud venue. And they've done this several times before. The Kingdom had renovations multiple times over. And then, of course, the Kingdom went bye-bye, and they played at Husky Stadium. And those were the shitty years. Those are the years where those games weren't selling out. You have this Seahawks team playing at Husky Stadium because they want to upgrade Lumen, and it is just going to sound like they moved Lumen over to the lakeside.
It's fair. All right, guys, we've got 43 super chats and comments to get to, so we got some work ahead of us right now, gents. So we're gonna have to get through these. So let's not, get too wrapped up in conversations, but as always, let's do a good job with it here. So first on the docket, we've got one from Ski Nation for $2 going, Rams do everything they can to beat us. Yes, they do.
It's the 2-point conversion, but we got to trade all these first round picks and add everything we can get. It's not, it's this, but it's also this. No, it's this, but it's this.
And as much as the Rams are obsessed with overtaking us this year, so is their fan base. My favorite thing that's been happening lately, this phenomenon, I'm sure you guys are running this too, is when you get Rams fans injecting themselves into your conversations on Twitter to tell you how much you're obsessed or we're obsessed with them, when you're the one that's clearly out there seeking conversations to jump into and troll. So that's a little fun phenomenon that we're getting to experience as well.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Here we go. Thomas Coxon with a $5 donation. Thank you, Thomas. He goes, on Hawk Blogger, Brian saw your clip with Jake about Murphy and Verse. I swear that if Murphy was a Ram, he would the Rams ever stat show right. Sure, you're right.
That was a fun time. Good job on that, Brandon, by the way.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, fun conversation, and I'd stand by it. Byron Murphy's a better player, and I think Brian did a good job on his show showing some of the stats that show this. He's just getting warmed up. He's outperformed Warren Sapp, who got to operate in his first 2 years in a 3-tech. He's operated nose tackle and gone note for note, out pushed him actually in tackles. So I think once you eventually see him as a 3-tech, you're going to see a Warren Sapp-like player there when he eventually does transition there. You don't need him to at the moment. But it's such a great conversation because there's so much that echoes out of this, like the 2-point conversion that does speak to things not being clearly seen by our opposition.
Well, and I'll say this too. You know who else thinks that Byron Murphy is a better player than Jared Verse? Les Snead.
Yeah.
Remember the reaction when Murphy went to
and that was my one. Yeah, that was my one, Dan, like, as I forgot to mention him, like, yeah, I've got your coach humping your general manager on camera on the day of the draft in the pursuit of begging him to go up and get Byron Murphy so that we couldn't get him. Like, this all belies your argument. And this is the crux of the Rams right now. Like, it's all the inconsistency thing where it's like, but wait, this thing over here seems to not speak to that.
We got one here from Jay Collins. Goes, the Hawk Daddies are back.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were all Hawk Daddies, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
I like it. We should have named the show that, I guess.
I didn't know the test results came out.
Oh, gosh. All right. Thomas Cox back in here with a $5 donation. Goes, but I thought it was hysterical. He started going secondary when you're debating the importance of Murphy in Seattle's defense. I told you, we talked about this off air. It was Byron Murphy, the corner, who Jake was referencing. I swear.
Yeah. When he started twisting to the secondary, I went, I got it. At that point, I've won we're moving the goalpost now. We're like trying to transition. And by the way, again, inconsistent because Jake was there a year ago saying that he's thought going into the season that Rams was the best secondary in the division. So it's like, which are they? Is it the best for when it's not convenient for argument, or is it the best when it's convenient for your argument? Like, be consistent on where you stand on stuff. That's always what I say.
That's fair. We got Jordan in here with a $2 donation. Rams fans are on drugs. Only explanation.
I would at least add up and make it.
Aren't we all these days, though? I mean,
fair point.
Good point.
It's the only way we get through life in this current world that we live in.
We got Sea Bear Art in here. Goes, respect for this crew. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you there, Sea Bear.
Appreciate you, Josh.
Here from Rich and Trish. Goes, who can the Hawks get to match the Rams move? D lineman or maybe a badass tight end? Well, I don't know if we got a badass tight end. His name's AJ Barner.
We do have a badass tight end. Yeah. I do think it shines a little bit of a brighter spotlight on right guard. Like, that's going to have to be better, whether it's Bradford playing better this year or somebody beating him out. The Seahawks, I think last year were near the top of the league and how often they went to 6-man pressures. If you could lighten that load a little bit, it just opens up so many more things for you on offense. Bryce, I don't have to tell you that, but it does just put a little bit more emphasis, I think, on just shoring that up. Let's see this offensive line take another step.
Would agree. We've got Scott Dogs in here with a $10 donation. Goes, do you guys have an edge that might be an outside the box type the Hawks might trade for? I got Brian Birds. Damn it, Scott. Stole my idea.
So the issue with the inherently here and going through and doing the research on this, we'll see if you guys are in alignment on this. The problem I've walked into is that there's not really a clear guy right now. And that would include Brian Burns and that would include TJ Watt, unless those guys are somehow willing to give some of their bonus money back. Because these teams would just have to suffer. It's a combination of two things. Not a lot of guys to any guys really available right now, to the guys who possibly could be available, have to eat too much dead money to a team that's sitting on too little of cap space. This is partly, I think, why the boys are all kind of in uniform here and looking at really the trade deadline, where you have now a team that we think might be a contender, or they think they're a contender right now, more importantly, and then they suddenly don't become the contender, and then a player who's not available by any chance right now becomes available then. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the best case scenario here, because I just don't think there's a Highsmith's fine. Again, though, we come down to Highsmith's like, okay, trade capital was a second-round pick. I just, Dan, you mentioned Jadeveon Clowney. Just go get Clowney right before training camp. Then you don't give up any trade capital. Then you can save that trade capital for later on to not have to give up max compensation for player. To me, it seems like a smarter approach all the way all around on this. And you might get a better player for it too. Because the guy we're not even thinking it's even possible, maybe, I don't know.
What happens if Houston all of a sudden starts shitting the bed and Danielle Hunter becomes available?
Yeah. It's that type of thing.
Not an extension,
that's what I'm thinking.
I don't remember the length. It was like a 2-year tack on or extra year on his contract.
Yeah.
It's a year by year thing, basically. Yeah.
But
you're on it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you could get that situation.
I do struggle to kind of come up with names that we're not thinking about that might become available. I do think the one thing that they're going to have to circle back to at some point, like as we sit here today, I don't think Max Crosby's available. I don't think he's on the market. He doesn't want to, he wants to be there now. That's a big difference in his situation. And teams are going to need to see the knee is healthy before the Raiders would even think about moving him, because, you know, they're going to want to maximize his return. And I think they feel pretty good about where they are. And I think there's a good chance that Max Crosby doesn't get moved at all now. Certainly not now. I know I've seen it some here in the comments. I get a lot of it on my feeds that like, well, let's just turn and go get Max now. He's not moving right now. And I think it'd be irresponsible to make the move right now without knowing where he's at. And so I think it's the usual suspects. It's all those guys that we mentioned. I will offer this up because I don't think I've talked about it on the show, and I don't think I made enough about it when I learned this about a week ago, but I'd been told a few weeks back that they were still recruiting another veteran free agent edge, even after they signed Dante Fowler. And that guy they took another shot at Von Miller this offseason, and he said no, he's not interested in coming to Seattle. Maybe it is because they have so many guys there now, and he would be part of a deep rotation. We'll see where he ends up. Sounds like he wants to go back to Denver. That might be a possibility there, but they are still interested in adding one more layer to that pass rush, even after Fowler. But you know, I think we've done a pretty good job of breaking down all the usual suspects here, and I think patience is the right way to go about it right now.
All right, we got Chris Northwest in here. Goes, who was more overdrafted, Ty Simpson or JJ McCarthy?
Ooh, they're similar profiles in the sense that most people didn't think that they deserved to be drafted as high as they were. That's a tough one with the lack of sample size with Ty Simpson. I'll say this about JJ. The things that we talked about earlier today, we were having some fun with. If someone had tuned in during that time, they might have thought they were dropping in on a Vikings roundtable.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I was higher than many on JJ coming out, and it wasn't necessarily the physical traits, but it was the intangible stuff. I just thought he was one of those dudes that teammates are going to rally behind. He was a real fiery competitor, and he'd figure out a way and put his body on the line. And when things break down, whatever, the stuff he's doing lately is the antithesis of that. It's the exact opposite of what you look for when you're looking for that it factor in a quarterback. And so that's why right now, with the way he's behaving, I don't give him much chance to be the next Sam Darnold and resurrect his career. It's there's a lot of people out there that are probably doing victory laps right now based on their assessment of McCarthy when he was coming out, and they thought he was overdrafted then. But yeah, I still don't. Here's my assessment of Ty Simpson, because he's only played 15 games in college. We don't know what he is. It's all projection.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
JJ's a marginally better than Simpson, but they're both very close in where I had with both of them coming out. So it still is, and some of them have the same issue being size, arm strength stuff. But Simpson's got the injury stuff that JJ didn't really have coming out. So it's that's the one thing that would bump JJ slightly up a little bit, but it's not significant.
Ty's a whole lot better in front of a microphone, though. I'll tell you that at this point.
Yeah,
it's not hard.
That's not hard. Exactly. Whitney in here with a $5 donation goes, "Hey guys, are you as annoyed that they have crowned the Rams already as I am?" Yes,
you better believe it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Fair.
It just doesn't. It was one thing when it was like right after the game. It was another thing when in the heat of the moment after the conference championship they came back and referenced in the game. So the thing when it stayed as a rule, then it's Jason. Now it's in the media. Now it just keeps like the blob gaining more like mass, almost seemingly.
Yeah.
We got one here from Thomas for $2. Goes, "I'm sorry if Eli gets in. Why wouldn't Russ?"
Because Russ hasn't changed his last name to Manning. But well, Eli's story would be that he's got 2 Super Bowl wins and I think 2 Super Bowl MVPs against the Patriots juggernaut. I'll tell you what, if the Seahawks win Super Bowl 49, Russ is in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And there's no debate. But otherwise, Eli at no point in time was ever a top 3 or top 5 quarterback. So basically, he's getting it on the back of his last name, playing for the Giants. And the magnitude of his 2 Super Bowl wins, especially the one that ended a perfect season. But otherwise, if you compare the two, Russ is 10 times a quarterback, 20, 50 times a quarterback Eli Manning was. Eli didn't stink in his heyday. He was quite good. He was just never near his brother. He was never a truly great quarterback.
I would tend to agree with that. Well, we've got one here from Misfit. Goes, "Russ in referring to Russ. Best deep ball thrower perhaps ever reminds me of Jeff Blake.
That is
that's
a deep
pull right there.
Wow.
My head immediately went to Dan Fouts, but Jeff Blake, that's a pull.
He did have a nice deep ball. Jeff Blake could,
He did.
when he let that thing go, it was pretty to watch.
He had a 70-yard arm too. He not just
Oh,
he could throw it up high. He had one of those like I'll throw it across the field kind of arms.
Yeah. We got one here from Trulso goes, I've got to wonder this. Considering the bridges that Russ reportedly burned in the front office before being traded, how long will it take before he is brought back into the fold, so to speak?
It depends on how much he burned the bridge, because according to the reports, he dropped a what would be akin to a nuclear bomb on his way out. And so the guy that he tried to fire, who's still the general manager, reportedly may not be super great with like, let's just welcome him back.
Mm-hmm. But with all those draft picks that they were able to get in return, it's welcome back. Thank you so much.
John's a very forgiving man. I'll give him that. He's been very forgiving on some stuff in the past. So
look, there are two outcomes there if Russ had stayed. One, Russ fires Schneider and Carroll, and Jody listens to Russ and Schneider and Carroll get fired. Or two, Russ stays, they just deal with Russ playing through the decline, and that absolutely fires Schneider and Carroll, or maybe Pete at the minimum. Like one way or another.
Here's the way this plays out. Russ, in the hypothetical what if world, Russ gets John and Pete fired. Sean Payton becomes the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
That would have been a tough sell, folks. That would have had us down.
some rough roads.
Just saying.
Here's what I envision is when they put him in the Hall of Fame, his like placard that they put up there, right? And when they start putting LOB guys in there, they're gonna have to figure out where they're gonna put all this stuff. But you put him up there, and then in smaller font underneath it will be the names Charles Cross and Derick Hall and Devin Witherspoon, and it'll have all the results, the positive results. You don't need to list
just all those Super Bowl trophies that came with it.
Just have it as a clip drop down, and it just drops down like a roll of paper of all of this.
At some point, they're going to have to go with the Ring of Honor. They're going to have to go with it as an LED board, and they'll just circle those guys through the whole game. Yeah.
I got a $20 donation here from Peter.
Ooh.
Go Hawks.
Let me give him a little thank you, Peter. Hey, man.
Go Super Bowl champs, baby. Wait, we weren't even healthy. Torrey Horton, Robbie Oots, Elijah Arroyo, Zach Charbonnet, and whoever else off the field for an extended period of time. With our new guys and healthy guys, we match up good with the Rams.
We do. We got depth. We got frontline guys. It's the thing that separates us from them in a major way, is that depth.
And Peter comes back here with another one for $5. Goes, 2014, my license plate said Dangerous. 2024, I got pulled over, and the cop said picture license plate. Now it says Russ who. Loved Russ, but Denver and Pitt, question marks.
Wow.
It's the old thing DK learned this lesson. Be careful about the grass being greener on the other side of the fence, and that no one's going to love you like your original team. And things can get dark in the NFL real fast. Yeah. Be careful. Derick Hall did a good job in this recent extension of taking heed of this. And NFL players would be smarter to do so, because sometimes that just concentrating on this other thing outside of that can lead you down the wrong way.
Well, and one thing I was thinking about with that is look at some of the guys that have come into that defensive line room and on that defensive unit from where, quote unquote, the other side sometimes can be greener with money. DeMarcus Lawrence being in Dallas for all those years. Hey, he comes up to Seattle, wins the Super Bowl. Leonard Williams being in New York for 2 different stints with 2 different organizations there. Julian Love, and having that influence being like, hey, yeah, man, you can go chase money, but sometimes you go to these shitty organizations because they want to pay you the big money. You don't end up having a great time when you're there. And then you come to an organization like Seattle, you can just stay here because we all wanted to be here. So we finally ended up getting the opportunity. Why don't you just stay here? Yeah, you may not make up that money right now, but you will at a later point. Stay where they appreciate you in a top-notch organization like Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, indeed.
So we got a couple super stickers here that I'm just going to go through from Industry Worth, and I appreciated Industry Worth. So we got a $20 super chat here. Hello, just enjoying the show.
Let's go. Thank you for that, Industry Worth. Appreciate
And
you.
Then you're gonna see industry worth kind of. I don't know if their hand got stuck, but we've got $1 super sticker. We've got another super sticker for $1. We've got another super sticker for $1, and we've got another super sticker for
Let's
$1.
go.
Thank you so much, industry worth, for that.
Appreciate you.
So many of them. And then sorry, I'm pretty sure we've got Dogzilla in here for $2. Goes to the Garrett trade freeze Bryce's beard growth. No, it's actually growing. It's just the light. It is actually getting longer and it's growing, Dogzilla. I'm working
I need my
on
flurry
getting,
beard, man. I need my
I'm
flurry.
working on it. I'm going to the barber tomorrow. I gotta get it all cleaned up a little bit and get it ready and stuff, but it's growing.
Doesn't
It
look clean
is
on
growing.
flurry, man. It looks pretty dirty on flurry.
Yeah,
Looks
but it's
just-
got to have
just-
some shape. It's got to have some shape. I can't do full Gandalf, Brandon. Like, come on.
Come on. Everyone wants the Gandalf Coots
No.
experience.
If I was going to do any beard to that level, it would be the Hagrid beard. That would suit me.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd go with that one. But thank you for the $2 donation there, Dogzilla. And we're back into the super sticker world with industry worth another $1 super sticker, another $1 super sticker, and another $1 super sticker. Thank you.
Thank you, industry worth.
We got one here from oh gosh, my eyes just went blurry. Sorry, Islam
like
in
saying
here
Nia.
goes. Sorry, say that again, Brandon.
Nia.
Thank you, Nia. I always remember for being the whiner daddy, or for Russ. I think it's Russ is always going to be remembered for being the whiner's daddy. 18-4 career record versus them in playoffs included, with his last year in Seattle, that awful 2021 season, sweeping them at their best.
And don't
Beat him
forget,
in Denver, too.
Even in the
Yep.
dreadful Denver year, the 11
He
to 10
did.
Classic, he was able to get them one more time for good measure. I mean, look, when it comes to Russ, and I know there's going to be some fans, including in our chat right now, who may still hold ill will toward him. But let's face it, unless Sam Darnold puts up insane numbers over the next several seasons, like consecutively, this is as good a chance as any that the Seahawks will have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback, who they drafted and developed, or at least signed and developed. Because I think, technically speaking, the only Hall of Fame quarterback who's ever touched a Seahawks football is Warren Moon late in his career. But in terms of guys they drafted or young guys that developed, we're at a zero. Our best quarterbacks in franchise history: Zorn, Dave Craig, Hasselbeck, anywhere from good to pretty good, nowhere near Hall of Fame level.
It's insane too when you think about how many high first round picks in the 90s they used on the position, right? It's crazy.
McGuire, Stauffer, Meyer, the
Mhm.
Holy Trinity.
You could have had
Unholy
Favre and
Trinity.
you took McGuire. God damn it.
Especially because now, Dan, it's been, 30 years since a first round pick on a quarterback, hasn't it?
Yeah. Never forget Mike Teal, but that just didn't work out.
Yes. Or Charlie Whitehurst, but he won us in NFC West over the Rams, by the way. So
Good old
Indeed.
David Green, too, guys. David Green was one there.
yes,
I forget David.
Wasn't he the winningest quarterback in Georgia history when we drafted
He
him?
was. That is for sure. A couple more super stickers here from Industry Worth. Another $1 and another $1. Industry Worth is just
I think
on
his keyboard
fire.
got stuck.
It must have
go.
gotten stuck. I'm loving it.
No, that's just her way. That's just her way. She's trying to get the algo going.
I like
Peter Go Hawks here with a $2 donation. I'll be worried about Garrett if Donald comes back. Well,
It's coming back, boys. Same source that told me Garrett was heading there about 2 weeks ago is telling me Darnold's coming back with certainty.
Oh boy.
Here's what I'll say about that. Again, and maybe
It's probably halfway into the year, though.
Yeah, I heard November. This might be copium, whatever, or it's just trying to find the silver lining and trying to appease ourselves. If Aaron Donald comes, that defensive line is already stacked as it is. So first of all, how's effective is he going to be 2 years removed from the game and at 35 years old? He's still going to be in top shape. I mean, he runs a fitness program now. He's stayed in tremendous shape. Probably have to put on some weight. That's probably why he's thinking it'll take a while. But anything you do with Aaron Donald, you're going to be taking snaps away from Kobe Turner, who I think is on the doorstep of being an elite player in this league. You're going to be taking snaps away from Braden Fisk. You can't just look in a vacuum at, this is a once great, all-time great player coming back. But what's the impact going to have on the rotation? And what's the difference, right? It's like we talked about in terms of you go from Verse to Garrett, that's not as big of a jump going from Byron Young to Garrett, right? So I just caution, are we going to see the Hall of Fame Aaron Donald when he comes back? And if that defense is flying high, then how do you work him into that, and who snaps does he take? So
I'll say this too: being in shape and being in football shape are two different things. And the reason I say that is, it is 3 years almost, I think now, right? It'll be 3 years for him if he does come back at some point, that he has been out of the game, and he plays a position where you are in consistent, constant impact with another massive, large human being. It's not like he's playing safety where, okay, I'm moving around, I'm dropping, and then I got to come down and make a tackle here and there.
It's not like when Marshawn came back, right? All you had to do is carry the ball and slam into people, right? Yeah, it's a little bit different.
It's a little different world. And so that's where, like, yes, I get he is still Aaron Donald, and he was probably the best interior defensive lineman outside of, Reggie White potentially in the NFL. 3 years being out of the game is going to be a lot to ask to come back. And like, November makes sense. But here's my question. What if November rolls around and the Rams aren't some 12-win team at that point, or 11-win team, or 10-win team at that point? What if they're 500? Is he really going to be as inclined to do it then? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, and I think the only way that they'd be 500 is if Matthew Stafford gets hurt, and at that point, he probably decides not to come back. I think that the situation, I feel like, would have to be perfect in a sense for him to come back.
Yeah, we don't have a track record of guys sitting out 2-3 years in the NFL and coming back. We have a track record of that being tried and that you don't come back the same, and that's for guys even in their 20s. Say nothing of a guy that's going into his mid-30s. Aaron was phenomenal, but this is something that he's heading into something that's very unique as far as trying him. And I share your guys' reticence to believe we're getting the same Darnold as before.
Yep.
So we've got Scott in here gifting out 5 Seahawks Forever memberships.
Thank you, Scott. Woo. You guys claim those if you'd like.
All right. And we've got Jordan in here with a $10 donation. Goes, you can't rely on a 30-year-old with little depth to be fresh in the playoffs. The Rams' run defense and secondary are still shaky. Casey corners weren't amazing last year. And that's one of my biggest points. You're taking corners from a team that didn't want them. Realistically, like, to, Brandon's kind of argument, I'll use a little bit in the verse situation. You were okay jettisoning Trent McDuffie to make salary cap room. Here, go away. We're going to go give you to somebody else. Hey, you know what? We're just going to clean out our cornerbacks, our starting corners. And, like, this is where, again, I look at it and I go, like, okay, yes, you've added pieces, but how does to Dan's point, Shula make this all work? That's a whole nother part of this equation that I think we're all it's not Madden. It's not, I can build a 99 overall team and it's just going to work great for me. You guys have to be able to understand the system and play within the system properly. And that takes a coach to be able to bring that together. And so that's still a question I think that's out there.
Blake Corum is the only position where it's not a complete drop off to the second, third string unit. I mean, a drop off a cliff. And it stands out on the offense and defensive side of the ball. And to me, for a team that starts to get a little bit older, I just think that that's going to present itself, especially with us playing them at the end of the year, and that this is going to end up working in our favor in a very nice fashion because of it.
Let's put it this way. Between the Rams and the Seahawks, there is only one team this season where it's so obvious that it's Super Bowl or bust. Seattle just won a Super Bowl. I think we will all live if Seattle doesn't win the Super Bowl this year. Might be different if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl, and then we really will never hear the end of it. But like, if the Rams don't win the Super Bowl and the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl and the Seahawks don't win the Super Bowl, if all those things happen, we'll still be laughing in the faces of the Rams and 49ers.
Agreed.
But the Rams, it is really like last chance saloon with this group because Stafford is so old.
Hey, and I'll just say this. Back injuries with older quarterbacks, sometimes they don't even make the regular season. Does anyone remember what happened to Tony Romo when he was in Seattle in the preseason?
Yeah.
Took a hit that looked pretty incidental, and then all of a sudden it was Dak Prescott and never looked back. Yep. Stafford could take a hit.
Simpson ain't no Dak Prescott.
Nope, and he is not. And that is my point. I was going to follow that up with Brandon, but that's my point. Part of my point is Stafford may take a rep in the preseason and just take an innocent hit and something doesn't go right.
He ain't playing in the preseason. I'm pretty sure of that. But even early, any point in the regular season,
Yeah.
it could happen. It's not like they're playing non-entities. They're playing other great teams in the start of the season. Heck, even the Giants, as Dan said, might not be great, but they still they got Burns there. I think they signed DJ Reader to replace Dexter Lawrence. They've got Thibodeau. They've drafted Arvell Reese. They're going to be real tests for that Rams offense soon.
And right off again, I'll reference the schedule. In among their first 5 games, Niners, a healthy Niners team, Broncos, at Eagles, Bills. That is no easy task. Now, flip side of that, if they go 5-0 to start the season, well, okay, then let the hyperbole train go ahead and start. Okay, we'll see you in week 16, right? And then even the Giants in week 2, as I said, they're going to be a physical football team. That's like, if you get through those 5 games unscathed physically, okay, now we can start talking about how dominant you're going to be. But that is the toughest beginning of the schedule of the 3 contenders in the division by far.
All right, we got a $2 donation here from Dogzilla. Goes, Brando, season prediction for Bryce's beard.
He's all on this. He's all on this, like, worried about his looks thing. Got to get it trimmed. Got to get it balanced. The whole point of this was to go Flurry style. I was expecting, I wanted 12 inches, and we're ended up with like 3.5.
Don't even.
There's a joke to be had here. I'm not going to say it.
Oh, don't
but,
even go
but,
there, man.
But nonetheless, I can't go past 3.5 inches. I don't think he's got the commitment level. I don't think he's all in. I don't think he's chasing edges. I think he's chasing. I think he's chasing trims.
But is it robust?
Oh gosh, jeez. You know what? You guys are awful. Okay, you know what? Just you wait. I'm not touching the physical beard. It's just little areas that I get clean, so it makes the beard look even larger.
I'm just saying, it looks like I haven't seen a lot of extra growth here.
Oh, for God's sake, there is.
I need like a time lapse camera on here or something.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
In fact, actually shorter this week, 2 weeks later, which is weird.
Jeez,
that's what they're saying.
Lack of sun in Canada, it just doesn't let your
I was hiding in my freaking igloo. That was the problem this week. That's what I was doing. I was hiding in my igloo, hanging out with my pet polar bear. All right, we got one here from Young Guns. Goes Kubiak Part 3.
Almost done. I'm wrapping up the next 48 hours, and then we'll have it out. So
there you go.
I am
$5 donation here from Megan over there in Australia. Goes, sorry if this has been discussed. Just got here. In your opinions, do the Rams make the Myles Garrett trade if they won the Super Bowl last year? And if so or not, why? I don't think they do. Question. I don't think they do it if they won the Super Bowl.
I don't either.
They don't. These have all been moves that have been, in my opinion, completely related to Seattle, and the fact that I know that all the Ram fans that we hear from, gentlemen, on our end of this stuff tell us over and over again that like it was luck and it was fluke. But I've often said that their front office does not agree no matter how many rule changes Sean McVay tries to push forward. They're telling you this is a hell of a Seahawks team last year that went out and won it kind of a year ahead early than they should have. They're probably going to just naturally be an even better, and we better buck up and be able to match that energy, or we're going to get left behind.
I would agree. So we got one here from Frank. Comes in with Leo needs to retire as Seahawk. Yep, I agree.
Amen.
And he will. If they get him signed to an extension, I think he will.
Yeah, I agree. Have you seen him on? I don't know. I think the guy's. I can't remember his Instagram handle, but he's out like spear fishing and doing stuff in the Pacific Ocean out there, and then like Seattle,
eating oysters right out of the ocean.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good stuff.
Magic the Gathering events, and
I am not. You boys doing that? Would you do that, Dan? Mookie? Would you just 100%. Have him pop open the shell and just
100%?
No, I'm a cooked oyster guy. I like oysters, but they got to be either broiled on the fire or deep fried. Yeah, I'm not eating.
They didn't even it's got the salt on it and crap. Like they just take it out, and they here's a salty knife. Let's salt our way through here. Just chew on it now. I'd be that thing would last a half second in my mouth before it'd just be a exorcist like vomit spray.
Oh man, no, guys, give me all the raw oysters fresh out of the ocean with a little hot sauce and lemon, and I am a happy man.
They didn't do no hot sauce or lemon, man.
And I can do them plain without it, but I will do raw oysters over cooked oysters any day. So anyhow, we'll move to this. Megan with another $5 donation here goes, the 2-point conversion, the gift that keeps on giving. The fact that we are still in their heads is so funny. Winning is so much sweeter when they moan.
Oh boy. And it's at a great stage this year with that pressure. And what happens if it doesn't go your way? And then what happens if it goes our way again? What is that going to do to you from a traumatic standpoint?
Megan, again, with another $5 donation goes, also worth noting, the Rams choked 16 points. We didn't. End of story. Back to back, baby.
Let's go, Megan.
Thank you for those, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
I like that hashtag. Let's run with that.
Let's go.
We've got one here. $5 donation from Peter. Go Hawks. All four of you can see the future. It's 2050. Who on the 2026 roster will be in the Hall of Fame?
Ooh.
I'm going with Corbin and what he told us at training camp last year when we were there.
Yeah.
Nick Eamon-Warry will be in the Hall of Fame.
JSN, Eamon-Warry.
I'll throw Byron Murphy in there. I think Byron Murphy's going to be in there when it's all said and done. Witherspoon and Byron Murphy are two guys that I think are going to get there. Witherspoon quietly three Pro Bowls and now starting to ascend to all pro status. So he's going to start to have the accolades stack up here.
And are we sure
those four?
If Leo plays long enough, puts 3 or 4 really good, solid years together to finish out his career, retires at like 34, 35, like I'd have to look at the numbers, against other tackles and defensive ends. But I think he's
good question.
Yeah.
I got one more for you. Gray Zabel.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
Ooh. I think that's a good collection there for you, Peter, to kind of go off of what we said. Actually, I'll throw one other name, 2026 roster who could be in the Hall of Fame. One guy we all didn't even talk about, Cooper Kupp.
I thought you were going to say Jalen Milroe.
There's too much wide receiver logjam, I think, for Kupp to make it.
Hey, but we're talking 2050. That's 30-ish years.
If Kupp can win a couple of Super Bowls, he gets to win 3 here, win one with the Rams. Maybe you can get on that,
He's got the Triple Crown MVP season.
And he's got that.
It sounds like, based on his comments today, I don't think it's a given that he doesn't play next year. So he might get 2 more years to add to that.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's another one I'll throw into that grouping there. But we got Nia here again with a $20 donation.
Let's go. Nia. Awesome.
Goes the 2025 Seahawks were 9 points away from a perfect season. Top 5 DVOA all time amongst the likes of the 85 Bears and 91 Redskins. Also, trailer for 90 seconds in the playoffs and won the division twice in the playoffs.
Only trailed for 90 seconds.
Oh, is that only trailed? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's what they meant. Yeah, you read it right, but they just did. That's what they meant was only trailed for. That's again where we come back to you lose only by 9 points collectively. You only trail for 90 seconds in the playoffs. Like, these are all not hallmarks of fluke and luck. They are the opposite thing on the other end of the spectrum.
It was the 2-point play. That was it. That would have wiped all of that out. That means nothing. If Charbonnet doesn't pick up that football, we couldn't have figured anything out from that point on.
Great stat there, Nia. It's just another stat that just shows you and it's not so much concrete proof and evidence for this. It isn't us homerism. It's like this shows actually quite the opposite of what you guys are trying to say.
And it's not even as simple as just 9 points away from a perfect season. Those 3 losses, last play of the game against the Niners, right? Last play of the game against Tampa Bay, where they had farther to go, but they had a chance, had the ball in their hands with a chance to win it. And then, of course, week 11 against the Rams, even with the 4 interceptions, had a chance to kick a long field goal to win it at the end. And all 3 of those losses, by a total of 9 points, they had a chance at the end of the game to win the game. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We got one here from Daniel for a $2 donation. Goes, in OT, EJ Pick was also taken from us in that game. That is true. His interception there in that Thursday nighter.
Yeah,
I still don't know what the hell a catch is.
That one did hit the ground, but if it just stayed in the air if it stayed in the air for a half second longer. Yeah,
but it did move. Did it move? The whole thing is if it did move, I can show you the Rams the year before the Cardinal game. Having the guy freaking snow cone the ball off the top of the freaking field. Like by that measure, Ernest freaking single-handed it up in the air in comparative terms to that freaking sucker. But don't get me started. I don't know what the hell a catch is still.
This is a fair point.
Neither does the league.
Nope. Sasquatch in here goes, Mookie blows me away with how much knowledge he has and the memory of everything. This is definitely my favorite group of guys I like watching on YouTube. Great job as always. Go Hawks.
Appreciate that.
Thank
Ollie.
you, Sasquatch. And yeah, this is one of our more endearing things about Mookie that we love about him is he is the wizard when it comes to pulling out random football knowledge that some of us just can't get to.
Well, look, if there are any Rams fans in the chat, go look up Seahawks Rams 2004, and it won the division for the Rams. And watch one of the officials literally take Bobby Ingram, or sorry, it might have been Darryl Jackson, out of the play for a game-winning touchdown. The refs literally committed pass interference. On the St. Louis Rams' behalf, and they ended up winning.
I was at that game, Mookie. I remember that.
No way. Wow.
Yes, I was at that game. I remember that because I also remember that we got all the way back down. Hasselbeck slides to the pocket, throws the ball inside, and it hits Bobby's hands, and he just drops it. It was the year of drop.
Well, that was the playoffs. Mookie's talking about in Rams.
Oh, I know, but that's what I'm saying is in the regular season, I remember that one, and then I remember it because it followed up in the playoffs. We had to play him in the wild card round,
and Bobby never dropped those.
No. Dylan in here with a $5 donation. Hot take: I think any team coming into Lumen Field walks away with a loss. 12's being loud. Number one defense. Football season can't come soon enough. Well, thank you for that donation,
go,
Dylan.
I like that prediction. And, to his point, their toughest games at home against the best teams are all primetime games for the most part. And that's when that atmosphere gets ramped up. And that's, they've been really, really good in those games. It's almost like the league did us a little favor there.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like.
Yeah. We got a member for 16 months here. D Nugget goes, let's go Mariners.
Let's go Mariners.
8 out of 9.
Getting it going.
And in here with a $1 super sticker. Thank you, D Nugget. Appreciate that.
Appreciate you, D.
We've got Banker in here with a $5 donation. Goes, if AD returns, Team NFC West, clearly all divisions will be 500. Cardinals doing A1 work on pom-poms.
It's clearing all divisions by 50.
Yeah, we're going to decimate the rest of the divisions. And he's not wrong. Geez. I mean, this NFC West, again, we thought it couldn't get stronger last year, and gentlemen, has it not?
It's as much as I'm excited, I think we all are about the Seahawks getting the hard knocks treatment. Man, I feel like the league missed an opportunity this year to do the new full division.
Oh yeah, for in season on the NFC West. Yeah.
That seems like a miss.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I just real quick on the Rams. The one thing that the Ram fans that I can appreciate looking at the Ram team on this, that I think that they'd be smart to do so and looking at us is rather than with this fluky, and I know you don't banker at all. I know you look at it legit as your post indicates, and we've talked before. But this is part of what's going to cement these teams in the legacy of the NFL. We lived through decades of watching football, us older men, and there's teams that just kind of get lost to the wayside. And that this division being this tough, these rivals being this tough, these two teams potentially being the two best teams in the entire NFL next year, again, helps for this to stand out historically speaking if you actually do accomplish something. It will not be forgotten. It will echo. And that's something that just makes it that much more cooler about this, what's going to come be this upcoming NFL season.
That's a really great point. Think about those 49er and Cowboy teams of the late 80s, early 90s, right? And they're even now, their historical standing in the history of the league were both elevated because of that rivalry and because, they played each other in so many important games over and over and over again. So yeah, you're not going to fade away from people's memories when you have, 3 potentially great teams in the same division year after year over an extended period.
All right, we got another $2 donation here from Dogzilla. Goes, Sammy D on the new $250 bill would be great with the shirt photo doing this. I'd go for it all day long. Megan back in here with a $2 donation. Not what you got, but how you use it. Price. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it.
Did she just give you a motion of the ocean line? Is that what that is?
She did. I think so. Yeah.
This episode has gone off the rails.
We went from talking about raw oysters and eating those to my beard to we're just all over the place. And that's what happens when you get us in the off season.
That's right.
Appreciate it, Megan. We've got one here from Dylan with another $2 donation. Appreciate all you guys and the hard work you put in. Thank you, Dylan. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Dylan.
all of you guys
Thanks for
watching
being
us,
here.
these 630 of you guys tuning in tonight to watch us. Really appreciate it. And while I've got that opportunity, if you haven't and you're watching on Twitter, Twitch, any of these different areas, head on over to our YouTube channels. If you have YouTube and you have an account, it doesn't cost you anything, but make sure you sub up to Seahawks Forever. Make sure you sub up to Hawks Nest with Brandon Kane. And if you haven't and you're watching on one of theirs, head on over here to the Hawks Eye and sub up to my channel. And if you guys haven't already got Field Goals bookmarked on your desktop or on your phone, make sure you guys do, because if you don't, you're doing it wrong. It is the best source for Seahawks content in written form and in most forms out there. So make sure you guys get all of that done while you're here with us tonight. Next one here, we've got another one from Daniel here for $2. Goes, have seen several rankings say we are not Super Bowl contenders.
They don't get us, man. They don't understand why we won last year. It's a good thing. It may seem like a bad thing when you read it, but it's actually a good thing, because when they don't understand us, they're not busy really truly trying to figure us out. And it's once they figure us out that you start to have a harder time making the run roll. So it's actually maybe kind of a positive thing when it's all said and done.
Well, and I'll
Just
say
let
this
us hang out in
too.
the Go ahead, Dan.
I'll say this too. I think this time of year and over the next 6 weeks, any kind of reporting or analysis that you see along those lines, you can almost dismiss it, right? It's a little bit illegitimate, because like fatigue is a real thing, and it's hard when you make a living coming up with daily content, which, you know, a lot of these writers for ESPN and everything else, like they have to put something out every single day. You run out of things to talk about. And so going with chalk is boring. And that's when they start to dig a little bit, like, how can I get a little bit of attention? I'm going to pick the Cardinals to win the NFC West. That's an extreme example, obviously.
Fair enough. We got Josh DeHuman in the chat here, my draft analyst and researcher over there on the Hawks Eye. But the $2 donation goes, gonna compare my beard to Bryce's at training camp. That is not fair, Josh, because your beard is way closer to looking like Brian Fleury's beard than mine is. You got
Josh has got a level of commitment you don't. That's all I'm gonna say. Josh is in to win.
You know what?
You're in as a married man, still worried somehow about is it looking right? Is it, how's the angle?
Let's even the playing field. Let's even the playing field. Let's see if Josh is willing to, and you guys can measure it and everything. Let's get it down to the same length, and then
I say, like, I'll hang out here if Brandon wants to catch up, and then we can see how it goes. Brandon could grow one out too.
No, this was about me suddenly. This was about you. How did we get on me with this?
Oh boy. All right, hold on here. I clicked on one twice. There we go. We got Peter Go Hawks here with another $5 donation. We got to do a Seahawks Syndicate Seahawk game with a meetup before and after the win. Would be awesome to hang and BS with all of you guys.
What a novel concept.
We'll definitely try to get this pulled off, Peter. It's tough with it conceptually with some of the stuff on it. Especially for me on my end with just going live those days, because they're so big for my channel to not be live and at the game. As much as it's fun to be at the game, it's tough. Because there's only so many of them.
However, hold your horses.
There's an opportunity on a gold platter, and we are all going to convene for a week of training camp, the week preceding the Dallas home preseason game. And we're working on finalizing plans and everything else. We have to wait until the training camp schedule comes out and make sure and see what that looks like during the week. But our plan as of now is that we're going to do live shows that whole week and do our reactions about what we saw at practice those days. And then pre and post game is the idea that we're kicking around right now of the Dallas game at Fast Fashion Brewing. And then we're going to stay. I think the last we talked about this, Bryce and I talked about it a little bit before you guys showed up today, but rather than do a pregame show, go to the game, come back and do a postgame show, I think we're leaning towards just kind of hanging and watching the game there with anyone who wants to show up, right? So we're going to have some real good opportunities, and we'll, as soon as those training camp schedules come out, we'll figure out exactly what we're going to do, and we'll start to promote that the moment that we know, so that you guys can make plans.
I like this next one here. I got to give Feed Me a shout out here. Feed Me OG Hawk Nest member for $2 goes, now we need to talk about Mookie's hair. Finally, someone else is going to be talked about here. Like, Mookie, I think you're
Muted.
muted.
This goes the week before 4th of July, in time for a new season. Also, because I got a separate work trip, so I gotta have it down just a little bit. But you notice that the beard came trimmed down from last week. So, but
Yes.
it's gonna grow back fast.
I trust
never let
Mookie's
it get
beard to
to-
go faster than Bryce's at this point. I'll
Oh,
say that.
good. You know what, Brandon? Just have a little faith over here. Come on now.
Got to get it trimmed. Go get
No,
go
it's
get my
just
edges,
about
edges
cleaning up
hedged.
all the other crap that grows down the neck here. That's what I'm getting rid of. I'm not
Football
touching it.
Football players don't care about all the crap that grows
Oh.
down in the spaces. They
Brendan
toughen it
has
up.
done
They
the
rub some
exact
dirt
same
on it.
thing. Bryce
There you
is
go.
Canadian hockey players. They grow their playoff beards. Bryce
Yeah,
should be able.
Right.
Just
That's
relax.
right. That's
and
the
let
Canadian
me- I
way,
have
Bryce. If
until-
anything, I'm just asking you to
I-
stick to your standard and the model by which you were born and raised.
Good Lord. Oh gosh. All right. Just hey, I have until training camp. Okay, relax. It will be bushier. But Chris comes in and says Brandon needs a serious mustache.
I think we.
I've told you guys I start to have cops following me, walking behind me when I wear a mustache. I have mothers grabbing their children and crossing the street. It's
Or near
not a
schools.
good look for your boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting loopy.
Oh, we're all over the place tonight. What do we got going on here? Oh, we got one quick one here. Buddy of mine, Cole McGarvey. Thank you. Cole is actually a part of another podcast that I'm now a part of, where I'm actually covering the CFL as well and the local team, the BC Lions, with some ex-Seahawks on it, like Levi Bell. But yeah, I'm doing a show, the BC Lions.
Levi.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually cut Jalen Darden from the Lions. He didn't make it as a punt returner up here for them. So little Seahawk connection there, but I'm running a show there with Brian and Cole called BC Lions Podcast. We did a live show last night. So if you guys want to learn about the Canadian game and some of the different intricacies between the two, head on over and sub up to that channel on YouTube. It's a show that's just growing, just broke 100 subs. So any support over there would be greatly appreciated on that one. But outside of that, guys, I think that does it for Super Chat. Oh, gosh. We got to get this beard thing is going to get overdone. Dogzilla with another $2 donation goes, ratings we used for rating Bryce's beard progress. What? Are we going to hold
Well, he's
up
at a 2
photo?
right now.
The
Oh,
F scale.
it's not at a 2.
The
Give me a
F stands for
3.5 at least.
I'll give you a 2.5.
Oh,
That's as far as I
gosh.
go.
I think you take
right,
all
I'm
the
gonna-
objectivity out of it and you just, or the subjectivity out of it, and you just measure. You just go by length.
Yeah.
I'm just
There'll
going
be
to start
nothing to measure right
sending
now.
daily, like weekly photos into the Syndicate chat of my beard growing. So Brandon can have a progress report.
I don't know. With AI these days, who can trust that?
I agree. Knowing him, he'd be out there just so I got my trim, but I got to get this thing solved at the same time. Then every time I go live, like, how'd it go small to long? Like,
Yeah, Bryce is
it's
pretty
the
good.
angle. The shadows are funny.
So I'm not buying it. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry. I'll say it again. It's called for Brian just put in the chat. He wanted me to say the name of the podcast again. It is the BC Lions Den cast. So like a paw.
God, you guys chose something simple with that one.
Double down.
Oh yeah.
Wordplay.
Yeah.
Double down.
Yeah. It's our
Why don't you add a
Canadian-
couple of hyphens and a few emoji
hey,
symbols in
hey,
there too
I
while
didn't
you're at
come
it?
up with the name, but
Just
it's unique.
maximizing
Like-
SEO all the way down the line on that one, Bryce.
Yeah, you gotta go with it. Yeah. So if you guys it's also got, if you follow me on Twitter, you can click on my bio, it's there as well, a link with it. But yeah. We got Seahawk Daddy in here. Heard a guy with a magnificent beard giving all the credit to caffeinated beard oil.
Caffeinated
God.
beard oil. People are putting everything on him now.
This is good. Okay.
Oh.
This is getting off the rails. All right. So with that being said, we're calling it a night here. But before we do that, Dan, why don't you tell everyone what you got going on at Seahawks Forever?
Yeah, I talk about the Seahawks every day. Tomorrow, I am going to do a show all about what we talked about earlier in Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame candidacy, and actually show some numbers and compare him to some other guys that are in the Hall of Fame, out of the Hall of Fame. And then next week, of course, is mandatory mini camp. And so the day after mini camp wraps up, I'll be doing content, of course, every day between now and then. But I'll have Greg Bell from the Tacoma News Tribune, great beat writer for the Seahawks, will be joining me the day after camp wraps up, talk about his observations of what he saw. So just a couple little things that are coming up.
All right, Brandon, what do you got going over on the Hawks Nest?
We got tomorrow, the B&B show, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'll be getting out the Year of Kubiak maybe by the weekend, part 3 in that series. And then on Sunday, we're going to be looking a little bit at Byron Murphy. It's been the hot topic this last week, and I want to dive in and I want to take a big old bite.
Sounds like a plan. Mookie, what do you got going over on field goals?
Well, Josh is in the chat. He's going to do a little review of Andre Fuller and how he fits into the Seahawks organization, not just the defense. And over the weekend, we're going to have a little reminiscing time about our favorite Russell Wilson moments.
Nice.
I like it. And over here on the Hawks side, I'm not going to have anything over the weekend as I am attending a wedding, and then I'm on a work trip for the first little bit of next week on Vancouver Island. But I will be back later in the week with a show where I'm going to start doing a breakdown in detail of the wide zone scheme and what Brian Fleury is going to bring to the Seattle Seahawks offense from Kyle Shanahan. So that's where we'll be going here on the Hawks side. But as always, if you haven't already, sub up to all of our channels, and you can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, all those good places. But we're going to try this, guys, see if we can get out of here with one. We're getting closer. We're getting closer, I swear. We're just going to go on 3, go Hawks, and hold for a half second after.
Do this because we didn't rehearse before the show like we had talked about doing. So Bryce, give us an example of the cadence of the pacing of how you're going to say go Hawks after that half second pause.
All right. Well, you said cadence, Dan. So white 80.
Yeah.
White
Right.
80.
Do it. Silly me. Forgot who I was talking to.
Oh, yeah. You got to remember that. The quarterback in me, you just triggered me automatically. PTSD from that right there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll say, all right. And we'll be out of here, everybody. And I'll go 1, 2, 3, go Hawks. Okay. We got that. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
You said it differently than you just did a minute ago. You said it differently.
I know.
Gosh, here
you
we
did a
go.
delay. You had a delay on that thing.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.